Chapter 860. There was a moment of silence in the field. Many practitioners were shocked. Could it be that those geniuses were going to deal with Demon Lin before the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival began? The words of the young man in the jade robe were light and casual, but they revealed endless madness and eagerness. Originally, Cell's death had nothing to do with him, but he was very active. This undoubtedly proved that he wanted to take this opportunity to step on Demon Lin and boost his power. Child Lin, this guy is called Tang Chuan. He comes from an ancient orthodoxy, Pang Bo sword sect. He can be called a genius in swordsmanship. The true sword of madness he mastered can be called an ancient unique skill with terrifying power. But this guy's character is not good. When he was in his teens, he hooked up with his brother and sister-in-law. Although this matter was later blocked by the Tang family, there is no wall in the world that does not have ears. I happen to know about this. At the same time, Bai Fenglio's voice sounded in Lin Sun's ears. Although this old man was a little shameless, he was after all the top-secret agent of the Wind Whisperer clan and had a lot of unknown information. Lin Sun looked at the young man in the jade robe with a touch of coldness in his eyes. Such a shameless guy dared to jump out so impatiently. Did he really think that Lin Sun was a soft persimmon that could be bullied at will? Courting death. Lin Sun spat out these words lightly. This made Tang Chuan chuckle, but his eyes were filled with killing intent that was incomparably terrifying. Since Taoism Peer Tang Chuan is in such a good mood, I don't want to spoil your mood. I'll leave this guy to you, Sha Luchan said in a low voice. He was very happy to facilitate this matter. With Tang Chuan's help, he could also test the background of Demon Lin. Junior sister Lingxi, it turns out that your friend is Demon Lin. No wonder you praised him so much before. But it seems that this Demon Lin is in a very bad situation. In front of the window on the 9th floor of the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn, a successor of the Pure Land of Longevity chuckled. More than bad, he has become a street rat that everyone wants to beat. This shows that this Demon Lin is not as powerful as the rumors say. I'm afraid he is really a deceiver. Junior sister Lingxi, you must be careful. Don't be deceived by this fellow. As the saying goes, you may know a person for a long time but not his heart. If others find out that you're friends with such a person, I'm afraid it'll have a very negative impact on your reputation. Junior sister Lingxi, you can't help this guy. After all, you are the successor of the Pure Land of Longevity. After all, you are the successor of the Longevity Land. World. What will those in the world think of us? The other men and women of the Pure Land of Lingxi also spoke, full of ridicule. A haze flashed across Bai Lingshir's brows, but she quickly regained her composure. Her delicate and pretty features remained unruffled as she replied indifferently, "You're wrong. He doesn't need my help at all. Just don't make a fuss later." The crowd burst into laughter. They thought that Lingxi was putting on a brave front and was unwilling to admit to such a shameful thing. Demon Lin, come. Let's take this opportunity to have a duel. Let the whole world see if you are a deceiver or if you are truly capable. Outside the gate of the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn, Tang Chuan laughed and strode forward. His sleeves fluttered in the wind. His cold eyes were like swords, emitting sharp beams of light. He stood there casually, releasing a wave of madness. Boom! His aura became even more terrifying. His clothes and long hair fluttered in the wind like an unsheathed peerless sword. He said slowly, "But I'll say this first. If you lose, the consequences will be unbearable. You may not even be able to kneel and beg for mercy." Many of the geniuses nearby were surprised. They sensed that Tang Chuan's aura was unusual. It was indeed rare and rare in the reincarnation developing realm. The onlooking cultivators widened their eyes and held their breath. Their hearts were pounding violently. There was no doubt that a duel between geniuses was about to take place. In the face of so much criticism and contempt, Could Demon Lin really display the powerful combat strength that was rumored to be? Since Tang Chuan, a genius of the younger generation from the Weeping Sword sect, dared to attack so forcefully, did he have the ability to kill Demon Lin? The atmosphere instantly became incomparably tense, and it was as if swords were drawn. In the pavilion of spring and autumn, some peerless figures who had not shown themselves stopped what they were doing and focused their attention here. If one looked down from the sky, they would find that with the pavilion of spring and autumn as the center, there were many cultivators rushing over from all directions of Star Cliff City. Obviously, the news of Demon Lin's appearance and his confrontation with the group of geniuses had spread like wildfire and was spreading at an alarming speed. Yu Jiaming was deeply worried and ashamed. He thought that it was because of him that Lin Sun was forced to show himself and fall into such a dangerous situation. Bai Fenglu watched the situation nervously, holding a thick stack of news leaves in his hand. He was ready to record everything that was about to happen and not miss a single detail. Sha Luchan and the other geniuses looked on with different expressions. Bai Lingshi stood in front of the window on the 9th floor. Her clear eyes were calm and her face was as still as water, ethereal and ethereal. At this time, Lin Sun was as calm as before. His black eyes were cold. In the face of Tang Chuan's arrogant provocation, he only said one sentence. "These are your last words?" Last words. The crowd of cultivators clicked their tongues. Demon Lin was indeed famous for his courage. In the face of such a situation, he was still so domineering and direct. It was surprising and shocking. Tang Chuan's face darkened and he let out a wild laugh. Based on these words, I will definitely kill you today. Clang. Amidst the sound of the sword, a dazzling golden spirit sword soared into the sky and swept into Tang Chuan's palm. In an instant, his entire body was filled with a terrifying and fierce aura that spread out and caused the void to wail. Many cultivators felt a stinging pain in their eyes. This was indeed terrifying. Just the might alone was enough to show that Tang Chuan's mastery of the way of the sword had already reached an astonishing level. This is the power of real sword of madness of Xuanbo school. It is an ancient inheritance of swordsmanship. Judging from the momentum, Tang Chuan has mastered the essence of this sword scripture. It's amazing. Some older cultivators commented with shock in their eyes. Chop. Tang Chuan strode out like an ancient swordsman. His sword intent was surging. A golden spiritual sword suddenly turned into a 300-meter-long rainbow, crossing the void and suddenly chopping down. The sharpness was indeed amazing and peerless. He seemed to be full of arrogance, but he was actually quite scheming. He knew that in front of so many geniuses, if he didn't show his real skills, he would be despised by others even if he defeated Demon Lin. Therefore, as soon as he made his move, he displayed the profound meaning of real sword of madness, intending to kill Lin Sun on the spot with a thunderous momentum. Many people in the field were retreating quickly, not daring to stand here. Tang Chuan's sword intent was too strong, wanton and terrible, covering the whole world. Once approached, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, something surprising happened. Lin Sun looked calm and composed. He just took a step forward, and in the process, an unparalleled dazzling light bloomed like a snow-white sun. Where Lin Sun stepped, an ice dragon, which seemed to be made of ice and snow, rose into the air. It was thousands of meters high, holding its head high and roaring. Many cultivators' expressions became sluggish, and they were overwhelmed with shock. They almost thought that a true ancient ice serpent divine beast had appeared. That divine might was too terrifying, and it was like a vast ocean that completely covered this place. Boom! Along with an enormous bang, the golden ray of sword insight directly collapsed into pieces and transformed into a rain of light that dispersed into the surroundings. On the other hand, Tang Chuan's entire body was swept by the ice-horned dragon's tail, and his figure was blasted flying with a bang while scarlet-red blood sprayed from his mouth. God! All the cultivators were stunned. What happened? Tang Chuan, with such monstrous sword intent, was defeated as soon as he entered the field? This was unbelievable. Demon God Lin had merely taken a step forward, yet he had sent a sword Dao prodigy from the Weeping Bow Sword sect flying? How terrible it was! Sha Luchan and other talents also narrowed their eyes in surprise. They didn't expect that Tang Chuan would perform so badly at the beginning of the battle. Tang Chuan himself was a little confused. He couldn't accept that he was defeated as soon as they met. He felt like he was dreaming. The so-called Heaven's chosen ones are like this? Don't you feel ashamed to clamor to suppress me? Lin Sun's words were full of disdain, and he attacked Tang Chuan rudely. You're courting death. Tang Chuan was angry and ashamed. Under the watchful eyes of the public, he had threatened to kill Lin Sun. Even if Lin Sun knelt down and begged for mercy, he would not let him go. However, in the blink of an eye, it had been defeated, and countless gazes had even seen it. All of this caused his expression to instantly turn livid, and he was furious to the extreme. Clang! He attacked again. The golden spiritual sword swept through the air and performed endless wonderful scenes. There were gods and demons roaring and disasters like landslides and tsunamis. The sword hummed like a tide, terrifying and frightening. That's more like it. Shaoyochan's frown eased a lot. Other practitioners nearby were also shocked. They realized that Tang Chuan was completely angry. He attacked without reservation and completely released the foundation of a young talent. It's really good that there is such a genius in Shiheng territory. In the pavilion of spring and autumn, a successor of the pure land of longevity commented. The other talents present also made comparisons and comments in their hearts. Most of them thought that Tang Chuan's performance at the moment was worthy of his title as the young talent of Weeping Bow Sword School. However, in the next moment, no matter if it was the prodigies or the cultivators present, all of them revealed a trace of dumbfounded expression. Boom! In the face of such a terrible attack, Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and an ancient seal rose into the air. The image of the divine beast Swanee emerged vaguely, emitting a terrifying divine brilliance that could suppress the 8 extremities and destroy the universe. In an instant, with a bang, Tang Chuan was smashed to the ground by the seal amid the exploding sword radiance. The earth cracked and the soil splashed. Tang Chuan lay there like a flattened toad, blood spurting from his mouth and nose. No one knew how many bones in his body were broken, and his body twitched incessantly. The sound of people inhaling cold air rose and fell in succession. They were all dumbfounded. Many talents were shocked. They had completely judged that in terms of combat strength, Tang Chuan and Demon God Lin were not at the same level at all. Chapter 861. Tang Chuan and Demon God Lin were indeed not on the same level. Otherwise, how could he have been defeated so badly? The battle had just begun, but he had been suppressed with a flip of his hand. This was no different from an ant trying to shake a tree. The crowd was shocked, and the sound of people gasping could be heard everywhere. In the past, the rumors had only exaggerated Demon God Lin's power, and many people were skeptical. After all, they had never heard of such a person in the Western Hung domain before this. It was inevitable that people would doubt the veracity of the rumors. But now, with Cell's death and Tang Chuan's crushing defeat, everyone realized that even if the rumors were exaggerated, Demon God Lin's combat strength was absolutely powerful. Shaoyuchan's expression changed slightly, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He had originally planned to use Tang Chuan to test Lin Sun's strength, but he did not expect such an outcome. Tang Chuan had been suppressed before he could completely test Lin Sun's strength. This undoubtedly proved that Demon God Lin could be regarded as a top-notch talent even among the heavenly sons. As for whether he could be called peerless, it was still uncertain. Some of the heavenly sons who had scorned and ridiculed Lin Sun had the same thoughts as Sha Luchan. None of them had expected Demon God Lin to be so powerful. Bai Fenglu was very excited. He had engraved everything that had happened just now in his mind. But soon, he became depressed again, because he found that many of the practitioners present had also used different methods to record everything that had happened just now. This also meant that the news that he, by Feng Lu, had obtained was no longer fresh. It was impossible for him to take the lead and achieve results that he was satisfied with. Yu Jiaming was quite emotional. When he first met Lin Sun on Purple Ox Mountain, he realized that Lin Sun was extraordinary. But he did not expect that in less than half a year, Lin Sun had grown to such an extent. It was really too heaven-defying. He won just like that? On the 9th floor of Spring and Autumn Pavilion, some descendants of the Pure Land of Longevity widened their eyes in disbelief. Senior brothers and sisters, we agreed not to make a fuss. In front of the window, Bai Lingshi was dressed in snow-white clothes. Her beautiful face was still indifferent, but there was a hint of mockery at the corner of her mouth. She had expected this, but she was also a little surprised. Compared with the time when he was in Xiao Empire, Lin Sun was totally different now. I merely defeated an ordinary character among the geniuses. What's there to fuss about? The coquettish woman draped in a fiery crane cloak snorted in disdain. If it were any successor of our Pure Land of Longevity, they would be able to do it. This doesn't prove how powerful Fiend God Lin is. It's just that his opponent is too weak. That's right, senior sister Yan Xia's words make sense. The others also chimed in. Bai Lingshi didn't comment, but she thought to herself, if Tang Chuan is really so weak, how could he be regarded as a heavenly talent? How could he have the right to enter the pavilion of spring and autumn? But then again, even Bai Lingshi couldn't deny that among the younger generation of the Pure Land of Longevity, there were plenty of people who could defeat Tang Chuan. Strictly speaking, in the eyes of an ancient and transcendent colossus like the blessed lands of longevity, someone like Tang Chuan could not be considered as a true prodigy. He could only be considered as one of the top figures among the younger generation. The place was silent. Only Tang Chuan, who was lying in the pit and twitching incessantly, was groaning in pain. He was so badly injured that he couldn't even get up. Compared with his arrogant attitude just now, the contrast was too great. I know I'm guilty. The ancient sages are right. How could a lowly person like you dare to despise and provoke me? At this moment, Lin Sun was still calm and composed. His black eyes were cold and calm. But in the eyes of others, he had a disdainful and domineering spirit. I heard that when you were young, you seduced your brother and sister-in-law shamelessly. That's against human ethics and despicable. How could a person like you be called a heavenly talent in vain? As soon as Lin Sun's words came out, it immediately caused an uproar. Everyone's expression became strange, and the way they looked at Tang Chuan became different. Seducing his brother and sister-in-law was a great sin. If it was true, it was indeed outrageous. You. Don't slander me. When Tang Chuan, who was already suppressed and filled with endless humiliation, heard this, he was so angry that his body stiffened. He spat out a mouthful of blood and directly fainted. Everyone sighed in their hearts when they saw this. Regardless of whether Tang Chuan had done something that went against human morality when he was young, merely his crushing defeat today was bound to make it difficult for him to raise his head high in the Westing region in the future. In other words, Tang Chuan, a heavenly talent, was destined to be discredited and removed from the ranks of heavenly talents after this defeat. In the future, anyone who talked about Tang Chuan would inevitably talk about his defeat at the hands of demon god Lin, which was undoubtedly a shadow in his heart. Unless Tang Chuan could rise up one day and defeat Lin Sun, today's defeat was destined to be an unshakable shame that would accompany him on his path of cultivation. It's your turn. While everyone was sighing with emotion, Lin Sun turned around and fixed his cold eyes on Sha Luchan. Demon god Lin took the initiative to attack. This surprised and shocked many people, but they also felt an unprecedented excitement. This was the legendary demeanor of a demon god. Although Lin Sun's methods were domineering and disdainful, he had never taken the initiative. But now, he was going to attack and point his spear at Sha Luchan. There's going to be a good show. Sha Luchan is not someone Tang Chuan can compare to. He is a true peerless heavenly talent who has long been famous in the West Heng territory. His combat strength is outstanding and he has the spirit of being invincible. The Tao Discussion Lantern Festival hasn't even started, but because of the appearance of Demon God Lin, such an unparalleled battle is going to break out. It's too surprising. I wonder if Demon God Lin can still be as domineering as before. The scene was in a complete uproar. At this time, more and more cultivators heard the news and rushed over, blocking the nearby street. In the distance, there were even practitioners standing on top of tall buildings or in the void, paying close attention to the situation here. This was normal. In the past Tao Discussion Lantern festivals, who dared to cause trouble in front of the pavilion of spring and autumn? They were tired of living. But today was obviously different. Demon God Lin, who had caused a stir in the West Heng territory recently, had appeared and confronted a group of heavenly talents in front of the pavilion of spring and autumn. This was a major event that could shake the West Heng territory, so it was difficult not to attract attention. The scene was in an uproar, and Sha Luchan's expression turned cold. Previously, Lin Sun had killed his squire, and he had not settled the score. He had never thought that Lin Sun would dare to take the initiative to declare war. This was undoubtedly a provocation to his dignity. Do you really think that no one can stop you after you defeat Tang Chuan? Sha Luchan's voice was cold, as if spilling out from an ice cave, with a penetrating murderous intent. A terrifying blood energy suddenly surged out from his tall body and spread out, causing the uproar in the surroundings to come to an abrupt halt in an instant. Many cultivators felt a chill run down their spines as if they had fallen into an icy pit, and they felt extremely oppressed. This was a peerless heavenly talent. Just his aura alone was enough to shock the world and suppress the universe. He had an aura and style that far surpassed his peers. You're courting death. Hurry up and kneel down to atone for your sins. The experts of the Sea Shark clan beside Sha Luchan all shouted with a cold expression. They looked at Lin Sun as if they were staring at a dead man. This time, your friend is in trouble. Sha Luchan is very strong. If we fight with him, it will be very difficult for us to win. Perhaps only senior brother Yu Lingkong can easily suppress him. Demon Lin is going to suffer. Junior sister Lingshi, don't rush to help him later. We don't want to be implicated. In the pavilion of spring and autumn, the successors of the pure land of longevity all spoke. Their expressions had regained their superior aura, with a hint of sarcasm. Let's wait and see. Bai Lingshi was calm. Some heavenly talents near the pavilion of spring and autumn showed an expression of watching the fun, and looked at Lin Sun with a touch of pity in their eyes. Did this guy really think that he could challenge the peerless heavenly talent after defeating Tang Chuan? Not to mention Lin Sun, even some other peerless figures in the West Heng territory would not easily provoke another peerless figure before the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival began. And Sha Luchan was undoubtedly such a person. There were also some heavenly talents who were a little indignant and unhappy because of Tang Chuan's defeat. At this moment, when they saw Lin Sun pointing his spear at Sha Luchan, they could not help but gloat. This undoubtedly meant that Lin Sun's forceful suppression of Tang Chuan just now did not bring much vigilance and fear to them. This was normal. Anyone who could be regarded as a heavenly talent by the world had far more pride and conceit than ordinary people. Their state of mind was naturally strong, and naturally they would not be easily affected. Perhaps there is someone in this world who can defeat me, but it is absolutely not you. Lin Sun ignored the noisy discussion around him. His black eyes were like lightning as he locked on Sha Luchan. His words were casual, but still as forceful as before. Haha, you really don't know what's good for you. Sha Luchan smiled, but his smile was full of killing intent, which made people's scalp numb. He could no longer control the killing intent in his heart. However, before he could make a move, he saw a commotion in the distant street, and a thunderous voice rang out. Friends of the Sea Shark clan, please don't do anything. The young master of the Zhongli clan is coming at full speed. Please let our young master kill Demon Lin. With the voice, a giant beast moved across the void like a mountain and galloped over. Its roar shook the sky, and the smell of blood assailed the nostrils. Some practitioners along the way could not avoid it in time and were forcibly knocked away, screaming. This was a black jade dragon elephant. Its eyes were as big as millstones, and its 4 hooves were like stone pillars. It was ferocious and incomparably arrogant. On its back, a group of young men and women was rushing over. All the heroes in the field were shocked. They hurriedly dodged and made way for them. Chapter 862. The Zhongli clan. It was an ancient and renowned clan that could stand shoulder to shoulder with those ancient orthodoxies in the West Heng world. Zhongli Wuji was the current holy son of this clan. He had long been famous in the West Heng world and was notorious for his ferocity. He was absolutely a peerless and ruthless figure in the younger generation. A while ago, when Lin Sun had just risen to fame and shocked the West Heng world, Zhongli Wuji had declared in front of everyone that if demon god Lin dared to appear at the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, he, Zhongli Wuji, would be the first to kill demon god Lin. Now, although Zhongli Wuji hadn't arrived yet, his clansmen had rushed over in the form of black jade dragon elephants, intending to interfere in this matter. This sudden turn of events caused everyone present to be shocked, and they couldn't help but look over. Even the geniuses present frowned. They hadn't expected that the Zhongli clan would interfere at a time like this. Moreover, they were so domineering that they wanted Sha Luchan to give up the opportunity to kill demon god Lin. Sha Luchan was already displeased to be interrupted in such a way. When he heard the Zhongli clan's domineering stance, it caused his eyes to emit a cold light, and he was furious. However, another unexpected event occurred before he could even react to it. Screech! A clear cry reverberated through the 9 heavens and rumbled through the surroundings. In the sky, a group of men and women riding on an enormous and majestic Cyan Luan whistled over. This group of people was even more domineering than the Zhongli clan. They flew over the heads of the cultivators in the form of Cyan Luan and descended. Many cultivators were displeased. They felt that such actions were insulting, but when they saw the identity of the newcomers, their expressions changed drastically, and they didn't dare say another word. The Cyan Luan clan. This was one of the top 5 clans in the West Heng world. It was a colossus among the variant beings, and it wasn't inferior to the Zhongli clan at all. Fortunately, we're not too late. We're a step ahead of Zhongli Wuji. A voice that was pleasing to the ear like a wind chime resounded. On the back of the Cyan Luan, a beautiful young girl with beautiful hair coiled into a bun walked down first. She was indeed very beautiful and very young, but her expression was too cold and aloof. There was a sense of pride that was branded into her bones that caused others to not dare look at her directly. Qing Lian. The cultivator's expressions changed again. This was the current holy virgin of the Cyan Phoenix clan. She was extremely talented. Her name had shaken the world a few years ago. Many cultivators in West Heng Dimension felt that Qing Lian even possessed resources and reserves that could rival the disciple of the profound Inquisition sword school, Ji Xingyao. There was no doubt that Qing Lian was also a peerless figure. Disregarding strength, just based on reputation alone, she was superior to Sha Luchan and Zhongli Wuji. As soon as Qing Lian arrived, her icy cold eyes fell on Lin Sun, and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly with undisguised pride. She said calmly and casually, "Are you Lin Sun, who is regarded as the devil Lin by the world? Very good, you've finally appeared. Back then, I said that I wanted you to kneel down in front of everyone to repent and atone for your sins, to admit that you don't live up to your name. Do you understand? There wasn't a single cultivator present who didn't know these words, and it had even shaken the entire West Hengjia a while ago. However, the meaning behind these words carried a sense of contempt and humiliation towards the devil Lin Sun. Yet now, Qing Lianer had spoken of this to demon god Lin in front of so many people. This undoubtedly seemed to be too direct, and she didn't conceal the feeling of humiliation at all, causing all the cultivators to be extremely shocked in their hearts. Lin Sun suddenly smiled. He looked Qing Lianer up and down, and then he said thoughtfully, "So you're that Qing Lianer? You really are a bitch." Everyone's eyes widened and they were dumbfounded. They almost didn't dare believe their ears. Qing Lianer was very impolite just now. The moment she arrived, she attacked the devil Lin Sun. However, it was obvious that the devil Lin Sun wasn't someone to be trifled with. He was even more domineering than her, and he directly called her a bitch. Even those geniuses couldn't help but have their lips twitch imperceptibly. Who in the world dared to scold the current holy virgin of the Cyan Phoenix clan like this? Bai Lingshi smiled. She understood Lin Sun. Back in the Xiao Empire, he dared to force Ling Tianho to kneel. There was nothing in this world that he didn't dare to do. Just calling her a bitch was already considered a light punishment. However, the descendants of the pure land of longevity didn't think so. They all frowned and revealed looks of disgust. They thought that Lin Sun's words were too vulgar and unbearable. However, they automatically ignored the fact that Qing Lianer's words just now were filled with undisguised humiliation. Qing Lianer's clear eyes emitted a terrifying, cold light. She didn't expect to be called a bitch in front of so many people. She was the current holy virgin of the Cyan Phoenix clan. Since she started cultivating, she was like the bright moon in the sky. Countless people chased after her, and she could get whatever she wanted. When had she ever been slandered like this? It seems like you won't repent. Killing intent surged in Qing Lianer's heart. She stepped forward, and her slender figure emitted a terrifying divine light. Her aura was terrifying. She had decided to kill Lin Sun to wash away the humiliation. Wait. However, just at this moment, the Zhongli clan members riding the black jade dragon elephants shouted and stepped forward to stop her. This demonic god Lin is my clan's young master's target. Young miss, please take a step back and let him out. How about it? A capable young man spoke. He was called Zhongli Kuei, and he could be considered to be an extraordinary figure in the Zhongli clan. How audacious! Even if Zhongli Wuji came here himself, he wouldn't dare speak like this. All of you better get out of my way. Qing Lianer was furious in her heart. Her clear eyes were like bolts of lightning, and her aura became even more terrifying. It caused the expressions of Zhongli Kuei and the others to change. Cyan Phoenix clan, you've gone too far. On what basis do you want us to make way? They were extremely dissatisfied and refused to back down. Enough. Suddenly, Sha Luchan shouted loudly. His expression was icy cold while his sky blue hair fluttered in the wind, and his voice revealed boundless rage. What do you think I, Sha Luchan, am? How dare you interfere with the prey I've set my eyes on? Quickly get out of my way. In an instant, the faces of Qing Lianer and the other Zhongli clan members sank, and they sneered. Shut up. Who does your Sea Shark clan think you are? Are you qualified to fight with our Zhongli clan? Sha Luchan, I advise you to stay out of this. Sha Luchan was thoroughly enraged, and his eyes revealed a fierce glint. Are you talking to me? The three parties confronted each other, scolding and threatening each other. None of them was willing to submit to the other, which left the nearby cultivators dumbfounded. This was too domineering. The fierce characters of Cyan Phoenix clan, Sea Shark clan, and Zhongli clan all wanted to be the first to kill demon god Lin, which led to a dispute. It went without saying that they saw demon god Lin as prey, and did not allow anyone else to touch him. It was very overbearing. Even the expressions of the onlooking geniuses became very subtle. They never expected such a thing to happen. Look, this is a street rat that everyone wants to beat up. On the 9th floor of the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn, the descendants of the pure land of longevity were gloating. Bai Lingshi ignored them. At this moment, she frowned slightly, sensing that Lin's situation was not good. Being regarded as prey by 3 parties, he should be very angry, right? What worried Bai Lingshi the most was that there were many peerless figures in the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn. She did not know who would intervene in this matter, and see Lin as a target to be suppressed. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Lin soon came from the mortal world, so he has no one to rely on. For many peerless figures, he is undoubtedly the best target to suppress. There is no need to fear any consequences or trouble. Bai Lingshi instantly guessed the reason. She was even sure that if Lin Sun was also a disciple of some orthodoxy, these guys would not dare to provoke him so unscrupulously. In the final analysis, it was because Lin Sun had risen too fast. Although he was strong, he did not have a powerful background to deter others. It's too difficult to rise alone in the ancient desolation where there are many orthodoxies and tens of thousands of races. Bai Lingshi sighed in her heart. At this moment, she actually felt an indescribable pity. How on earth did Lin Sun get through all these years alone? How much effort did he put in behind the scenes? How many blows and enemies like this had he encountered? No one knew. The atmosphere in the field was tense and murderous. Qing Lian Sha Luchan, Zhongli Kuei, and others confronted each other without concealing their power. Their tit-for-tat made all the practitioners present tremble. Many people looked at Lin Sun with pity in their eyes. Demon God Lin was really unlucky this time to be regarded as prey. It was sad and lamentable. It's over. Demon God Lin's situation is not optimistic. 2 fists can't defeat 4 hands. Moreover, it's not only Sha Luchan and Qing Lian who are fighting. Zhongli Wuji may appear at any time. Bai Fenglu was anxious. He did not want to see Lin Sun being suppressed before the Dao Discussion Lantern Festival. I'll go help him. Yu Jiaming took a deep breath and gritted his teeth. A group of peerless talents were targeting Lin Sun and arguing like they were fighting for prey. This was too much. Don't make trouble. Bai Fenglu hurriedly stopped him. It was no different from courting death at this time. Noisy. Shut up, all of you. In this chaotic and tense situation, Lin Sun finally couldn't stand it anymore. As he spoke, Lin Sun's figure flashed. He stepped on the void and suddenly came under the sky. His black eyes were like cold lightning, overlooking the whole field. Isn't it easy to die? Come at me together, he said coldly, and his voice spread like thunder. In an instant, the entire area fell silent, not a single sound could be heard. Many strong practitioners of ancient orthodoxies, masters of many tribes and aristocratic families, as well as talents from all over the world, all looked at Lin Sun in the sky. The young man was dressed in a moon-white robe. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and his cold eyes flashed like lightning. Accompanied by his shout, there was a kind of disdainful and matchless demeanor, like a demon god in the ancient legends, overlooking the world. Chapter 863. Lin Sun stood in the air and looked down at the crowd. He wanted Qing Lian and the others to die together. This scene was too shocking. Ridiculous, you must be tired of living. Sha Luchan was completely furious. He had planned to attack, but who would have thought that he would be disturbed by the Zhongli clan and Qing Lian? He was already furious, seeing that Lin Sun, whom he regarded as prey, dared to provoke him at such a time. He could no longer hold back. Die. He no longer cared about anything and attacked. His imposing body emitted a brilliant blood-red light as he shot into the sky and punched. Boom! The void exploded and the blood-red light shot into the sky. This punch was unparalleled. Many practitioners retreated, not daring to stand in the vicinity. Once a peerless figure like Sha Luchan got angry, the consequences would be unimaginable. Lin Sun stepped into the void and punched out to meet the attack head-on. Suddenly, the two collided like a volcanic eruption. Brilliant divine light swept across the void. The crowd was shocked. In such a confrontation, Sha Luchan did not gain the upper hand. He was only on par with demon god Lin. Not bad. If I kill you, the world won't think I'm bullying the weak. Sha Luchan's expression was cold. Golden light shone from his body and his blood chi roared. He had an invincible spirit. Cut the crap. After I kill you today, I can taste whether the meat of a sea shark is more delicious than that of a black tengu. Lin Sun said casually. Boom. Sha Luchan rushed up and punched out, shaking Zhou Su. Terrifying blood energy spread out like a clap of thunder. His divine might was terrifying. In an instant, the two were fighting fiercely. Their speed was so fast that it was too much for the eyes to follow. The light in the void roared and blood chi rose. It was as if two gods were fighting, attracting the attention of the audience. Sha Luchan was very powerful, far more powerful than some of the talents Lin Sun had seen before. In merely a short moment, they'd already exchanged a few tens of blows. The might of their fists rumbled beneath the sky, and it was like a surging tempestuous wave that erupted with dazzling divine radiance. Boom! The void seemed to have exploded, and a terrifying phenomenon appeared. The power of the Sand Flow Zen Fist could definitely split mountains and seas. It could be said to be peerless, but in comparison, Lin Sun seemed to be even stronger. He didn't dodge at all, and he used the 9 strikes of shaking heaven to meet force with force. Heavens! Mo God Lin is no different from the rumors. He is already able to face a peerless person like Sha Luchan. All the Xiozhi were shocked. Even the heaven's favorites were stunned. Their hearts couldn't stay calm. Could the rumors be true? Was this youth from the barren lower realm really that powerful? Boom! In the sky, Lin Sun was calm and powerful. He stepped on the void and rushed forward with a spirit that could swallow the world. He'd already completely fused the heaven-shaking 9 strikes Tao, and every single move he made was so powerful that it seemed as if it could shake the sky, and it was peerlessly terrifying. Sha Luchan was indeed powerful. The innate divine strength of the Sea Shark clan allowed him to be at the top of his level. He could easily cross realms and fight a half-step king. However, with a bang, Lin Sun's fist force roared and spread blazing light. When it came to him with the terrifying power of Tao, Sha Luchan's arm was numb. This shocked him. This guy's strength was extremely powerful and terrifying. Although Sha Luchan was domineering and arrogant, he didn't despise or underestimate Lin Sun. He had seen the fight between Lin Sun and the mysterious masked girl with his own eyes. He knew that even if the rumors about this person were exaggerated, he still had extremely powerful strength. This was also the reason why he wanted to suppress Lin Sun. Only by stepping on such a powerful opponent could he boost his prestige. If the opponent was too weak, he would only be laughed at by the world for daring to bully the weak. But now that he was really fighting Lin Sun, he was still a little surprised. Interesting. Sha Luchan's eyes were full of fierce light, and his momentum rose a lot. He was determined to kill Lin Sun. However, the current Lin Sun was more than twice as powerful as he was when he fought with the mysterious masked girl. He had set foot on the road to the peak of reincarnation developing realm, and his martial cultivation had integrated with Tao, which made his combat effectiveness change dramatically. The best proof was that he easily suppressed Lin Taizhen of the Green Mountains Fox clan a few days ago. Under such circumstances, how could he be afraid of Sha Luchan? In other words, in the reincarnation developing realm, Lin Sun was no longer afraid of any opponent. Suddenly, a clear rebuke sounded in the field. How can I allow others to beat me to the prey I've set my eyes on? Along with the voice, the void suddenly trembled. Like a thunderclap, a beautiful figure rushed out and attacked Lin Sun fiercely with monstrous, killing intent. Boom, the sky trembled, and the nearby void exploded. This blow was extremely terrible, like a divine rainbow falling from the sky. Lin Sun snorted coldly. With obscure Tao sounds coming from his mouth, he performed the Puleo roar. The golden sound wave spread and dissolved the blow into pieces. Hiss! All the heroes in the field gasped. They saw Qing Lian had appeared in the void. She was outstanding, dressed in cyan clothes. Her skin was white, and her beautiful face was cold and arrogant. Her strong intervention immediately disrupted the rhythm of the duel between Lin Sun and Sha Luchan, and also caused an uproar. Was a peerless melee going to be staged? Oh no! Bai Lingshi's heart skipped a beat, and a solemn look appeared in her clear eyes. Both Sha Luchan and Qing Lian wanted to kill Lin Sun as possible. Under the threat of these two peerless talents, Lin Sun's situation was not optimistic. Damn it! How could this be? Bai Fenglu and Yu Jianming's faces also changed. However, to everyone's surprise, Lin Sun was not afraid at all. Instead, he sneered, "Bitch of Cyan Phoenix clan, you came just in time. Come at me together, so I don't have to kill you one by one." As he spoke, he took a step forward. With a roar, his momentum became stronger and stronger. A snow-white ice dragon rose into the sky and rushed towards Qing Lian. He performed the 9 strikes for shaking heaven and rushed towards Sha Luchan again. Lin Sun was going to fight against two peerless talents at the same time. Seeing this scene, the whole audience was in an uproar. They widened their eyes and felt that their blood was burning. Lin Sun's momentum made them exclaim in satisfaction. As for some of the elites, they frowned. Just to deal with a single fiend godlin, they had to send out two peerless figures. Even if they won, it wouldn't be glorious. Qing Lian, do you want to fight against me on purpose? Sha Luchan roared angrily. He didn't want to join hands with others to deal with Lin Sun. He couldn't afford to lose face. At the same time, he hated the fact that Lin Sun wanted to fight against the two of them at this moment, which was undoubtedly a contempt for him. Boom! As Sha Luchan spoke, a blood-red light burst out from his body. He used a secret method that was extremely terrifying. After resolving Lin Sun's attack, he directly rushed towards Qing Lian. "Get out of my way!" His roar was like thunder, and his fists pierced through the air. It seemed that he was going to suppress all directions with an invincible spirit. "Sha Luchan, do you really think I'm afraid of you? Let me tell you, I'm going to kill Lin Sun. Whoever dares to stop me is my enemy." Qing Lian's clear eyes were cold, and her whole body was full of fierce spirit. She waved her slender and white hand, and a sharp divine light appeared, entwined with the power of Tao. She fought against Sha Luchan. Boom! For a moment, the battle in the void seemed to be chaotic. Lin Sun wanted to fight against the two of them alone, but neither Qing Lian nor Sha Luchan agreed. Both of them tried to kill Lin Sun alone, and their attitude couldn't be changed. In the void, Lin Sun fought fiercely. Sometimes he fought against Sha Luchan, and sometimes he fought against Qing Lian. He was not afraid of anything at all. The same was true for Qing Lian and Sha Luchan. When they wanted to deal with Lin Sun, they were always disturbed by Lin Sun and had to fight back. The three of them fought against each other, and it was actually a rarely seen chaotic battle. All the heroes in the field were dumbfounded. They never thought that a peerless battle would turn out like this. However, such a battle was refreshing and could be said to be incomparably rare. In the past years, such a strange battle had rarely happened. As for the geniuses, they were startled and surprised. However, they soon focused their attention on the battle. Whether it was Devil Godlin, Sha Luchan, or Qing Lian, the current situation had vaguely formed a situation where they were restraining each other and fighting each other. Comparatively speaking, it could be said to be fair. If one really wanted to haggle, Fiend Celestial Lin was undoubtedly the one who suffered the most. This was because the other two were bent on killing him. The blow he suffered was undoubtedly the most terrifying. On the contrary, although Qing Lian and Sha Luchan restrained each other, and no one could tolerate the other killing Demon Lin first, the conflict between them was not a real life-and-death battle. This meant that even if they fought against each other, they couldn't be ruthless. No matter what, Lin Sun is at a disadvantage. Those two guys have gone too far. Bai Lingshi frowned. She was angry for Lin Sun. Many practitioners realized this and saw the unfairness of Lin Sun's situation, but they didn't dare to say anything except sighing in their hearts. Whether it was the Cyan Phoenix clan or the Sea Shark clan, they couldn't afford to offend them. Even if they felt sorry for Lin Sun, they could only sympathize with him in their hearts. Boom! In the sky, Lin Sun and the two peerless figures fought in a melee. It was an unprecedented battle. What shocked everyone was that even so, Demon Lin didn't show the slightest sign of defeat. He wasn't even suppressed, which made him look extremely strong and terrifying. Qing Lian face became colder, and her clear eyes were full of killing intent. Xiaoyochan's face was livid with anger. Both of them realized that if they continued fighting like this, people would only say that they were bullying Lin Sun. Even if they won in the end, it would be an unfair victory. This was not the result they wanted. But soon, their faces changed slightly, and they didn't dare to think any more. Because at this moment, Lin Sun's combat strength had suddenly soared, and the power he exerted became more and more powerful, which made both of them feel a kind of pressure. How was this possible? Both of them were shocked. Chapter 864. How was this possible? Both Sha Luchan and Qing Lianer were shocked. Previously, they tried to be the first to kill Demon Lin. They both used their killing moves and showed their true abilities. They subconsciously thought that if it weren't for the fact that they were restraining each other, Demon Lin would have been killed by now. But who would have thought that the opposite was true? Even though Demon Lin faced their fierce attacks, he was not suppressed. Instead, he became stronger and stronger. At this moment, they even felt a kind of pressure. How could they not be shocked? Kill! Sha Luchan roared. Like a barbarian god, he was strong and powerful. His body seemed to be cast from blood jade, shining brilliantly and translucently. He was the holy son of the Sea Shark clan, the son of an ancient fierce beast. He possessed peerless power. Now that he attacked in anger, his power became different. Humph! At the same time, Qing Lianer was also irritated. Her slender figure was steaming with cyan light, and her cold and beautiful face was full of fierceness. Clang! She took out a cyan machete that looked like a wing. The runes on the machete were flowing, blooming with peerless sharpness. There was no doubt that this was an extremely powerful secret treasure. However, Lin Sun had already roughly figured out the abilities of these two people. He had no more scruples. He rushed into the field, his elegant figure bathed in waterfall-like divine brilliance. His cold eyes opened and closed, bursting with lightning. He was like a great demon with terrifying power. Boom! The battle in the void became more and more intense. There, rays of light rushed up, blood chi surged, and the wind was fierce. If it happened in the city, it would probably cause an unpredictable disaster. Dong! After a round of fighting, Lin Sun directly broke Xiaoyochan's defense with his fist. Then, he collided with Sha Luchan. The dazzling fist wind cracked Xiaoyochan's hand and blood burst out. At this time, Lin Sun was incomparably domineering. His combat power was boiling, and he seemed to have the momentum to sweep across the world. Bang! His fist energy was so terrifying that the void was shrouded in dazzling light. The whole sky seemed to be shaking and rumbling along with the fist energy. In an instant, Sha Luchan staggered back. His blood and chi were surging, and his face suddenly became extremely shocked and angry. "Impossible!" he roared. He had carefully read all kinds of information about Lin Sun in front of the message tree, and he believed that he could suppress Lin Sun if he took action himself. However, Sha Luchan never thought that what he knew about Lin Sun was just a while ago. Today, Lin Sun had already gone through the 3 disasters and completely transformed into a new realm, far better than before. The crowd was overwhelmed with shock. They cried out involuntarily in disbelief. How could they have imagined that fiend god Lin, who was already at a disadvantage and repeatedly suppressed by the 2 peerless figures, would launch a counterattack at such a moment? The elites were shocked as their expressions changed slightly. Even if they were unwilling, they had to admit that they had underestimated fiend celestial Lin. This caused them to feel very uncomfortable in their hearts. Rumble! The world shook. As soon as Sha Luchan was pushed back, Lin Sun's figure flashed up. He stretched out his hand and ran the secret of Baxia prohibition to stop Qing Lian Er's attack for a moment. Taking advantage of this moment, Lin Sun rushed forward and punched out fiercely with the profound meaning of 9 strikes of shaking heaven. Boom! This punch tore the void apart like a piece of cloth. It was unparalleled and overbearing to the extreme, and it directly blasted on the cyan machete. Qing Lian trembled as if she was struck by lightning. Her chest felt stuffy, and she almost coughed up blood. She had to retreat, and her cyan machete almost flew out of her hand. Rumble! The void where she was originally fighting was blasted apart, turning into a terrifying turbulence that spread out. This made Qing Lian Er's heart palpitate and she frowned. How could he be so strong? However, despite suffering a small loss, both Sha Luchan and Qing Lian were worthy of being peerless figures of the younger generation, and they were not injured. However, their expressions were solemn as they realized that the fiend celestial Lin in front of them should have a terrifying foundation that could crush others in the same realm as them. This was a formidable opponent. The battle continued. The 3 were tangled together, and under the blue sky, the chaotic clouds collapsed, and the void was in chaos. The practitioners in the field had long been stunned, and their hearts were drowned in endless shock. As expected of the fiend celestial Lin, he didn't gain a reputation by deceiving the world, and he didn't live up to his reputation. He was clearly even more ferocious and arrogant than the rumors said. He was still able to fight until now under the attacks of 2 peerless figures, and he'd even forced his opponent back. How many people in the younger generation could possess such peerless divine might? He deserves his reputation. A senior expert sighed with emotion. His words proved how laughable the criticism of fiend celestial Lin was. This kid's combat strength is shocking indeed, and there's rarely anyone in the same generation that can rival him. Some peerless figures in the field had been constantly watching. At this moment, they finally dared to conclude that Lin's strength was already a peerless figure in the younger generation. No matter the outcome of this battle, we'll have another formidable opponent in the Tao Discussion Lantern meeting. The eyes of Mu Jianting, an elite disciple of the younger generation of the Void Jade Temple, shot out divine radiance, and it was like a clanging of swords and sabers colliding. It's surprising indeed. I heard this kid is a cultivator from the lower dimensions, but the resources and strength he possesses can be said to be shocking. If we encounter him in the Tao Discussion Lantern meeting, then we should treat him as a great enemy. Li Qinghuan, an extraordinary figure of the younger generation of the Vast-Sea Taoist sect, spoke in a light voice. His voice carried a trace of seriousness and solemnity. Only such an opponent is worth looking forward to. If he's too weak, then wouldn't it be too boring? The Thunder Clan's junior marquis, Lei Qianjun, spoke with a droning, sonorous, and forceful voice that carried an explosive and oppressive, imposing aura. Besides them, there were many other peerless figures in the field, and their attitudes towards Lin Sun had silently changed along with the unfolding of this battle. On the other hand, the expressions of those geniuses that ridiculed and looked down upon Lin Sun earlier were slightly gloomy at this moment, and they were surprised and bewildered in their hearts. Originally, they'd subconsciously thought that Lin Sun was from the lower dimensions and possessed an extremely poor identity, and the rumors about him were all false. They'd taken him to be a figure that didn't live up to his reputation, and they'd been extremely disdainful and looked down upon him. But now, the world-shaking chaotic battle unfolding before their eyes undoubtedly proved that they were all wrong, ridiculously wrong. This fact was like an invisible slap on their faces. The burning pain made them feel very uncomfortable, and it was very difficult for them to accept. This. In the pavilion of spring and autumn, Yen Xia, who was dressed in a fiery crane cloak, widened her eyes in disbelief. The other descendants of the pure land of longevity were the same. Their expressions were uncertain, and their minds were in a daze. Just a moment ago, they were still ridiculing Lin Sun, thinking that he was about to suffer a calamity and be detested by everyone. But in the blink of an eye, everything had changed. The demon god Lin that they despised had actually fought with two peerless figures under the green underworld pavilion, displaying a tyrannical combat strength that far surpassed his peers in the world. This was too unbelievable. They asked themselves honestly, and even if they were in his shoes, they wouldn't be able to display such divine might in such a chaotic battle like demon god Lin. How could this be? Could it be that they'd really misjudged him? At this moment, Bai Lingshi, who was standing in front of the window in a snow-white robe, didn't even turn her head. She gently spat out 4 words from her lips: "Don't make a fuss about nothing." Instantly, the figures of Yen Xia and the others stiffened, and they revealed embarrassed expressions. From the first time they met Lin Sun, Bai Lingshi had told them not to make a fuss about nothing after witnessing Lin's means. However, they didn't take it seriously at all. They thought it was ridiculous. They were all descendants of the pure land of longevity. How could they be so agitated? But now they found that they had become ridiculous people instead. This made them feel a little embarrassed, as if they had eaten a fly. But they couldn't refute it, and their expressions became very interesting for a while. However, Bai Lingshi didn't bother to continue to attack them. At this moment, the battle in the sky was getting more and more intense, attracting all her attention. Boom! Sha Luchan was about to go crazy. He felt a little embarrassed after fighting for a long time. His figure swept across like a thunderbolt, becoming more and more powerful, as if he was pushing the sun and the moon with terrible ferocity. Lin Sun's figure flashed and avoided it. He raised his hand and performed the secret method of Swanee Seal, colliding with Qing Lianer, who came from one side. Boom! The void shook and the divine light was absorbed by the rock. Sha Luchan became even angrier. His eyes were ice-cold. On his sparkling and resplendent body, resplendent symbols appeared one after another. These were the true innate bone marks. They contained the supreme profound mysteries of the archaic vicious beast sea shark bloodline. Once they were used, 10,000 streaks of bloody light shot out. Vaguely, there was a thunderous sound, which shook the surroundings and spread to the 9 heavens. In a trance behind Sha Luchan, there seemed to be a bloody shark of tens of thousands of meters, which covered the sky and the sun. The terrible breath filled the universe as if to swallow the world. Everyone's expression changed. Even the heavens' favorites' pupils constricted. They realized that Sha Luchan had unleashed a terrifying technique in his rage. Lin Sun didn't dare to neglect. He ran all the Upanishads of 9 strikes of shaking heaven to the extreme and punched out. Boom! The peerlessly dazzling and resplendent punch seemed to have pierced through time and space, and it carried an all-conquering and peerlessly ferocious killing force. At that moment, in the boundless fist, there appeared the cycle of the sun and the moon, landslides and tsunamis, and all kinds of terrible phenomena. Qing Lianer, who was attacking Sha Luchan, suddenly changed her face. She suddenly withdrew and retreated to the distance. She realized the horror and danger. At the same time, Lin Sun and Sha Luchan's peerless strike collided. Suddenly, an earth-shattering explosion sounded, as if thousands of mountains collapsed in an instant. The terrible divine light spread in all directions, crushing and shattering the void. On the ground, some buildings were affected and disappeared with a loud bang. Some practitioners didn't have time to dodge and were sent flying by the terrible aftermath. At that moment, the city within a radius of 100 miles shook violently. Sand and stones flew everywhere. It was chaotic, and exclamations and screams rang out. Only the pavilion of spring and autumn was safe and sound. This pavilion was a famous historical site, which had left traces of ancient sages, so it was not affected. However, at this moment no one paid attention to this. All eyes were fixed on the void with a touch of disbelief and horror. There, Sha Luchan staggered back more than 30 meters. His face turned red, and finally, he couldn't help coughing out a mouthful of red blood. Chapter 865. There was a dead silence. Sha Luchan was furious and used a peerless secret method. The sound of Tao roared and the shadow of an ancient blood-red sea shark appeared, almost engulfing the world. Even Qing Lian had no choice but to avoid the sharp edge at this time. However, in such a head-on clash, the one who was defeated was not Fiend Celestial Lin, but Sha Luchan. This left everyone incredulous. It was really incredible. Sha Luchan's combat strength had long been acknowledged by the younger generation of the West Hung world, and he was hailed as a peerless elite. Now that he had used a peerless divine power, he was still defeated by Demon God Lin in a head-on clash. Didn't this mean that Demon God Lin's true strength was even greater than Sha Luchan's? Many of the Heaven's favorites were secretly shocked by this. For example, the girl in purple dress from Mi Luo Palace, who had been indifferent and aloof, couldn't calm down at this moment. A ripple flashed across her beautiful face, and the descendants of the pure land of longevity were all stunned. They even felt that at this moment, Lin Sun had a style that didn't belong to Yu Lingkong. How was this possible? They couldn't believe it. Not only them, but Bai Lingshi also seemed to be quiet, but at this moment her white hands also trembled. She was not as calm as she looked on the surface. You actually injured me? In the void, Sha Luchan's face was livid and his pupils were dilated. It seemed that he couldn't accept all this, and his voice was filled with anger and surprise. It's easy to kill you. Why make such a fuss? Lin Sun smiled. His black hair was flying, and his whole body was bathed in the bright light. The power of Tao circulated, making him look like a sun, shining alone in the universe. He didn't stop. As he spoke, he rushed forward and continued to kill. I don't believe you are really so strong. Unexpectedly, Qing Lianer, who had just avoided Lin Sun's sharp attack, took the lead to launch an attack. She controlled the bright and sharp cyan machete and cut through the void. Swish! Thousands of saber lights appeared in the void, like thousands of comets falling down, dazzling and dazzling. The saber chi was terrible, tearing the universe apart, and dense like a rainstorm. Many practitioners in the field felt a stinging pain in their eyes, and they couldn't open their eyes. The saber lights were too bright and dense. Blue Moon Chaotic Demon Kill. Sha Luchan's pupils constricted. Originally, he had wanted to attack, but now he chose to watch from the sidelines. That was because he recognized that what Qing Lian was using was one of the Cyan Phoenix clan's secret technique. Once it was used, the blade would be like a green moon hanging in the sky, able to throw the world into chaos and kill gods and demons. Its power was extremely terrifying. Moreover, the saber in Qing Lianer's hand was an ancient treasure called the Greeny Lightbreaker Saber. Its power was comparable to an Imperial Dao armament. Under such circumstances, Sha Luchan also wanted to see whether Lin could block Qing Lianer's attack or not, because he still couldn't accept the scene of being defeated just now. It felt so unreal. Rumble! Saber chi filled the sky, and it was like a green crescent moon dancing wildly, throwing the universe into chaos. There was no doubt that Qing Lian was greatly shocked by the scene of Lin defeating Sha Luchan, so she used her killing move at this moment. Lin Sun was fearless. With a clang, he took out a bright halberd and chopped out like lightning. This was one of the treasures he had obtained from Sel after killing him. Dang! Dang! Clang! Sparks splashed in all directions, divine light burst out, and murderous qi filled the sky. In an instant, he and Qing Lian had fought hundreds of times. The dazzling saber light almost drowned Lin Sun. At this moment, Qing Lian was really terrible. Her momentum was so fierce that it was frightening. Streaks of saber light like the green crescent moon swept out, tearing the void into pieces. Rumble! In the distance, some buildings were struck by the saber qi, and they were immediately chopped into two before collapsing and collapsing. Numerous enormous cracks and ravines were cut open on the ground, and they crisscrossed each other. Crack! In the blink of an eye, the halberd in Lin Sun's hand was cut off and exploded. Hiss! The sound of gasping was heard. Was Demon Lin going to suffer a disaster? Qing Lian's lips curved coldly, but before she could be happy, the curve of her lips froze. Because at the same time when the halberd exploded, a snow-white saber light suddenly burst out from between Lin Sun's eyebrows and appeared in the void. At that moment it was like a stream of light from ancient times, crossing the river of time, with a kind of breathtaking magnificence, which seemed too unreal. Puff! Qing Lian let out a scream as if she was extremely frightened, and her figure retreated rapidly in the void. The audience was stunned. They thought Demon Lin would be in danger, but who would have thought that at this moment, Qing Lian seemed to have encountered a great disaster. It was too fast. Everything happened in a flash, and many practitioners didn't have time to react. Only some peerless figures keenly noticed that the saber light that swept out from Lin Sun's body had severely injured Qing Lian with just a flash. It was even to the extent that even they had merely caught a glimpse of this scene, and they hadn't truly seen through the terrifying profundities contained within this attack. Crash! In the sky, Qing Lian had retreated 1,000 feet away. A bloody wound stretched from her left shoulder all the way to the right side of her abdomen. Blood splattered everywhere. Just a bit more and her abdomen would have been split open. My God! When they saw this scene clearly, all the practitioners present felt their scalps go numb, and they were so shocked that their bodies stiffened. Qing Lian almost suffered a disaster? It was as unreal as a dream. The other geniuses all had serious expressions on their faces, and their hearts were in turmoil. Even though they were unable to see through the true profundity of the attack just now, they all felt threatened. He actually still has a trump card. Only Sha Luchan, who was in the battlefield, acutely noticed the terror of the strike just now, and the breathtaking scene at that moment caused his heart to tremble, and he gasped without end. He realized that Lin Sun still had an extremely terrifying trump card hidden, and this was the power of the broken blade. After stepping into the reincarnation developing realm, Lin Sun had truly started to control the power of Dao insight, and he could finally display a part of the power of the broken blade. Even if it was merely a part, the heaven-defying might was still invincible, and it could easily kill a half-step king realm practitioner. Qing Lian was only seriously injured and not killed on the spot, so she deserved the title of peerless genius. Bitch, you're still not going to die? While everyone was shocked, Lin Sun didn't stop at all, and he leaped forward with the intention of taking advantage of this opportunity to kill Qing Lian in one fell swoop. Although this woman was the current saintess of the Cyan Phoenix clan, she was extremely vicious. Even though he had never met her, she had humiliated and provoked him to the extreme, and she wanted to step on him to advance. So Lin Sun would absolutely not show any mercy. He had had enough. Since he had already made a move, he would kill to the end. Only in this way could he make an example out of her, and shock those who despised and criticized him from the soul. Damn it! After suffering a heavy injury, Qing Lian still couldn't believe it, and she was extremely shocked and furious. She couldn't imagine that she would almost suffer a calamity, and this caused unprecedented shame and hatred to surge in her heart. When she saw Lin Sun rushing towards her, she almost went mad. Did he see her as prey and wanted to kill her? This was going too far. Since she started cultivating, she had never encountered such an embarrassing and dangerous situation. Lin Sun, your opponent is me. At this critical moment, Sha Luchan actually rushed out and stood in front of Lin Sun, and his blood-red fist rumbled, tearing the void and striking towards Lin Sun. Scram! Lin Sun was in a hurry to kill Qing Lian. At this critical moment, he exerted all the strength in his body to its peak, and let out a bulow roar. Rumble! The golden sound wave was like a solid substance, shattering the void and spreading out, forcing Sha Luchan back. This bulow roar was indeed incomparably domineering, and it even targeted the soul. In the distance, Qing Lian had already suffered a heavy injury, and being caught off guard by the deafening roar, she felt a sharp pain in her soul and almost exploded. Ah! She let out a shrill scream, her hair disheveled, and her beautiful face looked especially hideous and twisted at this moment. She no longer had the proud and aloof saintess demeanor from before, and she simply looked like she had gone mad. Boom! At this moment, Lin Sun had already rushed over, and he was attacking with great force. All the cultivators present were shocked, their eyes widened, and their hearts were in their throats. Too strong, demon god Lin's arrogant attitude that swept through the entire field had completely stunned them. Not good. The Heaven's Favorite's expressions changed, and they realized that Qing Lianer was in a precarious situation, and she was about to meet a calamity. However, at this critical moment, a sudden change occurred. A figure as tall and straight as a spear suddenly appeared in the void, blocking in front of Qing Lianer, and then he struck out with his palm. Bang! There was a terrifying collision, and divine light burst out, and it actually dissolved Lin Sun's powerful sure-kill strike. This made Lin Sun frown, and his expression turned cold. At this critical moment, Lin Sun was furious that his strike to kill Qing Lian was destroyed. He looked up and saw a black-robed man with an incomparably handsome face, long purple hair hanging down, and a pair of pupils that seemed to be cast out of gold appeared in his eyes, incomparably terrifying. Black robe, purple hair, and pupils that emitted golden runes, all these characteristics made this young man extremely unique and extraordinary. Zhongli Wuji! He's actually already here. Everyone was shocked, and they immediately recognized the black-robed, purple-haired young man's identity, making him the focus of everyone's attention. Previously, Qing Lian was seriously injured, and even Sha Luchan was forced to retreat. Just as Demon God Lin was about to start a massacre, Zhongli Wuji arrived. He came just in time, and as if he had calculated everything, he turned the tide, which was equivalent to saving Qing Lian's life. Such an appearance was undoubtedly very eye-catching, and it also made him extremely extraordinary. In an instant, his limelight overshadowed Sha Luchan and Qing Lian. It's better to come at the right time than to come early. As soon as Zhongli Wuji appears, it's obvious who's superior. Many practitioners sighed with emotion. But the Heaven's Favorites present had strange expressions, and they were secretly vigilant. How could they not see that Zhongli Wuji had obviously arrived long ago, and had been hiding in the dark, waiting for this moment to appear? Why did he do this? It was too simple. On one hand, he could overshadow Sha Luchan and Qing Lian's limelight, so as to highlight his extraordinariness. On the other hand, he could conveniently save Qing Lian's life. This was a great favor, and even if Qing Lian was unwilling, she would have to repay this great favor sooner or later. Chapter 866. Welcome, young master. Young master is mighty. All the clansmen of the Zhongli clan spoke out. Their faces were filled with pride, and they seemed as if they felt honored as well. The experts of the Azure Phoenix clan and Sea Shark clan all had gloomy expressions. Zhongli Wuji was truly scheming, coming out at this moment to act as the savior. How shrewd and scheming! Some peerless figures frowned. They did not expect Zhongli Wuji to be so adept at grasping the situation. This was undoubtedly terrifying. In the void, Zhongli Wuji's figure was tall and straight like a spear. His purple hair was thick, and golden runes appeared in his eyes as he blinked. He was extremely talented and extremely intimidating. Demon God Lin, it's just a spar, yet you want to kill someone. This is too much. His words were casual and calm, but they carried a reprimanding tone. His high and mighty attitude was like a senior reprimanding a junior. Many cultivators were speechless. Previously, Demon God Lin's divine might was disdainful as he swept through the battlefield, defeating Sha Luchan and Qing Lian one after another. Under such circumstances, Zhongli Wuji still dared to treat Demon God Lin like this. This was shocking. Sha Luchan's expression was ugly, and he was filled with annoyance and anger. This time, not only did he fail to defeat Demon God Lin, he even allowed Zhongli Wuji to seize the opportunity to show off, acting as if he was going to stand up for him and Qing Lian. How could Sha Luchan not be angry? Qing Lian was the same, her expression livid. She had her own trump card. Even if Zhongli Wuji did not appear, she was confident that she could not be killed. But it was clearly too late to say all this. Whether she admitted it or not, she had to accept Zhongli Wuji's favor. This made her hate him so much that she almost crushed her teeth. Being defeated by Demon God Lin in front of everyone was already humiliating enough. Now that Zhongli Wuji had appeared, she was even more humiliated. How could she not feel aggrieved and resentful? At this moment, Zhongli Wuji was absolutely dazzling, attracting the gazes of all the cultivators present. But Lin Sun hated this person and said coldly, "So you're Zhongli Wuji. You really are a bastard who likes to show off." His words were very impolite. Zhongli Wuji's appearance had made him miss an excellent opportunity to kill Qing Lian. Likes to show off? Bastard? The crowd was restless, and all of them were stunned. Some of the cultivators were so impressed that they wanted to kowtow and worship him. As expected of Demon God Lin. Only he would dare to criticize Zhongli Wuji like that. On the other hand, the expressions of those geniuses became strange. To be honest, they agreed with Lin Sun's words, but they would not show it on the surface. Junior sister Lingxi, this friend of yours is truly arrogant. Even I can't help but feel admiration for him. A successor of the blessed lands of longevity lamented. Although the others didn't speak, their expressions were a little complicated. They had witnessed the shocking melee just now and also witnessed how Lin Sun defeated the peerless talent. The disdain and contempt in their hearts had long been swept away. Even if they were unwilling, they had to admit that Demon God Lin was truly powerful. Even in their holy land of longevity, there were only a handful of peerless figures like Demon God Lin. Bai Fenglu was very excited. He quickly used the message leaf to inscribe. The angle he chose was very tricky, and he specifically inscribed the part where Lin Sun reprimanded Zhongli Wuji. As for Zhongli Wuji's words, he deliberately blurred them out. Demon God Lin, oh Demon God Lin, we, the Wind Whisperer clan, should have maintained a neutral attitude, but I don't like these fellows, so I can only exaggerate your image. Even if you find out about it in the future, you'll definitely appreciate my kindness, Bai Fenglu muttered to himself. Brother Lin Sun is really a god. Yu Jianming sighed with emotion after holding back for a long time. However, to everyone's surprise, Zhongli Wuji didn't get angry. Instead, he frowned and said calmly, Demon God Lin, do you only know how to talk? If so, I will look down on you. He was indeed very calm and maintained a kind of demeanor. So what if you look down on me? Lin Sun was so angry that he laughed. You are really shameless and hypocritical. A few days ago, who was the first to jump out and threaten to suppress me in front of the world? Now, you say that I only know how to talk? Do you have any shame? Without any concealment, Lin Sun's words were direct and impolite, which shocked all the practitioners present. They increasingly realized that demon god Lin's fierceness was even stronger than the rumors. Thinking back, from the moment demon god Lin appeared, he killed Sel, the top expert of Sea Shark Clan, and then suppressed Tang Chuan, the top talent of the young generation of Weeping Sword sect. Even when Sha Luchan, Qing Lian and the Zhongli clansmen appeared and pointed their spears at him, he still wasn't intimidated. Instead, he leaped into the sky, intending to kill Sha Luchan and Qing Lian these two peerless figures, all by himself. Later, Sha Luchan was defeated, and Qing Lian was seriously injured and almost died. All these scenes happened in front of everyone, which invisibly reflected the strength and fierceness of demon god Lin. Looking at the whole world, there was probably no other person with such courage and ruthlessness. But to everyone's surprise, Zhongli Wuji was still unperturbed in the face of demon god Lin's reprimand. He just frowned and said, "Yes, I did say that not anyone in this world is worthy of the title demon god. If you don't accept it, I'll be the first to suppress you at the beginning of the Dao Discussion Lantern Festival and remove your title." His words were calm, but he had a strong foundation and absolute confidence. "Cut the crap. It's easy to die if you want to. I'll send you on your way now," Lin Sun said coldly, finding him more and more unpleasant. The crowd was in an uproar. Demon god Lin wanted to continue suppressing Zhongli Wuji? What did it mean to be unrivaled? That was it. If Fang Linhan, the successor of Baji Saber Nunnery, was here, he would probably also sigh at his inferiority. However, when Sha Luchan and Qing Lian heard it, they felt inexplicably pleased. Previously, they had been defeated by Fiend God Lin and felt humiliated. They were furious and aggrieved, but now Zhongli Wuji was in the limelight, acting like the savior of the world. This made them feel extremely repulsed and disgusted. Therefore, when they saw Lin Sun's ferocious provocation and reprimand Zhongli Wuji, they were naturally happy to see it happen. They even wished for demon god Lin to show his might and suppress Zhongli Wuji first. This was the mentality of, if I'm not having a good time, I won't let you have a good time. Now? Heh, aren't you embarrassed? Zhongli Wuji chuckled. I, Zhongli Wuji, am not one to be watched like a monkey show. A monkey show. Instantly, Sha Luchan and Qing Lian's expressions turned extremely ugly. How did their duel become a monkey show from Zhongli Wuji's mouth? Was he calling them monkeys who were trying to impress the crowd? The crowd was speechless as well. Zhongli Wuji might look calm and collected, but his words were so sharp that it caused others to feel fearful. A monkey show? You're right. I'll make a fool out of a shameless and hypocritical monkey like you today. Lin Sun's figure charged forward. He was too lazy to talk nonsense. Boom. Dazzling divine brilliance flowed all over his body. Lin Sun exerted his full strength the moment he made a move. His fists were bright and blazing, whistling through the universe. Zhongli Wuji's pupils shrank. He originally thought that after such a fierce battle, demon god Lin must have consumed a lot of energy and would at least have some scruples when facing him. Unexpectedly, Lin Sun was still as strong as before and was about to start a battle. It seems that if I don't suppress you, trash from the mortal world, you don't know what respect is. Zhongli Wuji's eyes shot out golden runes that looked like they were cast from gold. His purple hair fluttered in the wind, and his power suddenly became extremely terrifying. In an instant, the wind and clouds surged in the sky, and the atmosphere was tense. A peerless duel was about to begin. The crowd was excited as they looked over. Is it worth it to fight to the death before the Dao Discussion Lantern Festival begins? Listen to this old one's advice, all of you stop. However, before the two of them could fight, a figure had appeared in the sky like a ghost and stood between them. It was an old woman with silver hair, hale and hearty spirits, and a dignified aura. Her aura was like a towering mountain that connected the heavens and the earth, and it gave others an unshakable feeling. All the cultivators present gasped as they recognized the old woman. She was a top senior figure from the Xianwen sword house. No one had expected that this old woman with an extremely lofty status would interfere in this matter. At the same time, Lin Sun's pupils shrank, and it made him extremely unhappy. When he intended to kill Qing Lianer, he was stopped by Zhongli Wuji. Now, another old monster stood out with the intention of stopping all this. How could Lin Sun be happy? At this moment, Lin Sun didn't care who it was. He wasn't afraid even if it was the Emperor himself. Boom! He executed the ice dragon steps, and a snow-white ice dragon soared into the sky. His figure flashed, and he was about to pass the old woman and continue to kill Zhongli Wuji. Zhongli Wuji's pupils constricted, and he was slightly infuriated. He was very surprised because he thought that Lin Sun would retreat in the face of difficulties once the old woman made an appearance. Never had he imagined that this fellow actually didn't back down at all. It wasn't just Zhongli Wuji, even the old woman was slightly surprised. This kid really deserves to be a fiend god, isn't he a bit too ferocious? While she thought like this in her heart, the old woman stretched out her hand and slapped. Crimson divine radiance swept through the sky while the glow of the Tao rumbled, and it revealed a grand and profound scene as it obstructed Lin Sun. This casual strike carried a form of natural might that was accompanied by the grand Tao, and it instantly dealt with Lin Sun's attack. Stomp! 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 Lin Sun was blasted to the point of taking a few steps back in midair while his arm went numb, and he couldn't help but be shocked in his heart. This old woman had clearly not stepped foot into the King realm, yet her strength was much stronger than some top half-step King realm experts. But in merely an instant Lin Sun was stunned. He'd clearly seen the old woman's appearance and instantly recognized her. Chapter 867. All the cultivators present here were shocked. Demon God Lin was too ferocious, and he even dared to attack fearlessly when Granny Golden Crane made an appearance. Granny Golden Crane was the old woman with snow-white hair. She was a top figure of the senior generation in the Profound Inquiry Sword School, and she possessed a great reputation and was highly respected. In the westward region, even some great figures of the ancient orthodoxies had to be courteous to her. This was prestige. Zhongli Wuji's expression was solemn as he berated, "Lin Sun, how audacious of you! You actually offended a senior of the Profound Inquiry Sword School for the sake of committing murder. You're simply disrespectful and arrogant to the extreme." His voice shook the 9 heavens and caused the surroundings to become restless. He was seizing this opportunity to sow discord between Demon God Lin and the Profound Inquiry Sword School. "Who the fuck do you think you are? Come out and fight me if you have the balls." Lin Sun was extremely blunt as he detested such hypocritical opponents. Zhongli Wuji was awe-inspiring, and his golden eyes flickered with lightning as he shouted, "Do you think I don't dare? Today, I'll enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and annihilate a disrespectful madman like you." "Alright, don't do anything else." Granny Golden Crane waved her hand. "If you want to fight, then do it during the Tao Discussion Lantern discussion. At that time, even an old fellow like me won't be able to stop you from fighting." As she spoke, she glanced at Lin Sun with a meaningful gaze. Lin Sun's heart shook. He knew that she was reminding him that even if he carried out a slaughter today, it would be impossible for him to kill his opponent. The reason was very simple. There were countless great figures paying attention to him in the shadows, so they naturally wouldn't allow him to carry out a slaughter. However, Zhongli Wuji grinned and said, "Senior, you're right. I've said that in the past as well. Unfortunately, some people can't keep their composure and are jumping up and down like clowns." "How laughable." Lin Sun said directly, "Remember what you said. I'll definitely kill you when the Tao Discussion Lantern discussion begins." Zhongli Wuji laughed lightheartedly. "Then let's see if you have the ability." The curtains to this peerless chaotic battle were drawn. Lin Sun didn't enter the spring and autumn pavilion, and he left with by Fenglu and Yu Jianming. Killing intent accumulated in his heart, yet he didn't act impulsively because he wanted to seize the opportunity before the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival began to obtain a detailed understanding of the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. Demon God Lin lives up to his reputation. Although the battle had come to an end, the practitioners in the field still could not calm down. Thinking of the scenes they had just seen, they felt Lin Sun's strength and ferocity more and more. A youth that came from the lower dimensions is able to possess such a peerless bearing now. Ask yourself honestly, who amongst the younger generation of the Western Ocean world is capable of accomplishing this? In the future, if anyone dares to say that Fiend God Lin doesn't live up to his reputation, that would be truly ignorant. Many shoujo were filled with admiration. Demon God Lin had come from the lower Jia alone with no one to rely on. His glorious battle achievements had all been achieved with his own fists. This seemed to be extremely difficult, and it wasn't something that the heirs of the other ancient sects could compare to. He defeated 2 peerless geniuses by himself and even threatened to kill Zhongli Wuji during the Tao Discussion Lantern meeting. Can anyone in the entire Westheng world go against such combat strength and courage? What do you think Fiend God Lin's strength has reached? That's insane. All sorts of discussions rose and fell. Pavilion of Spring and Autumn. There was a total of 9 levels, and there was another world within them. Every level had its own scene, and the space within it was boundlessly vast. There were traces of ancient sages left behind here, and one was able to clearly sense a shapeless, solemn, and ancient aura within it. The Tao Discussion Lantern meeting was about to begin, and numerous geniuses from different areas of the Western Ocean world were gathered within the Spring and Autumn Pavilion. In the past, it was difficult to even meet a single genius. But now, the 9th level of the Spring and Autumn Pavilion was filled with extraordinary figures of the younger generation that were renowned throughout the world, and it could be said to be a gathering of geniuses. However, there was a difference between geniuses as well. Just like the current Spring and Autumn Pavilion, the geniuses that resided on the first level were far from being able to compare with the peerless geniuses that resided on the 9th level. This was the gap between them. To give a simple example, Yu Jianming was an extremely dazzling figure in the Fire Soul Prefecture. But after he arrived at the Spring and Autumn Pavilion, he could only reside in the hall on the first level. Even a retainer like Cell dared to kick him out of the Pine Mist Pavilion, and this was the gap between him and a peerless genius. It wasn't just related to one's strength, it was also related to one's status and identity. Take Bai Lingsher's group for example. Although they weren't peerless geniuses, they were from the southern profound world's pure land of longevity. Just this identity alone was something that other geniuses couldn't reach, so they naturally had the qualifications to sit high above the 9th level of the Spring and Autumn Pavilion. But no matter what, being able to enter the Spring and Autumn Pavilion was already a form of acknowledgement, and it wasn't something that most cultivators in the world could compare to. This demon God Lin is simply too ferocious. He's even more formidable than the rumors say. I really can't believe that he actually came from the lower worlds. Alas, another peerless genius has appeared. Even if there are many unparalleled fortuitous encounters in this Tao Discussion Lantern meeting, I'm afraid only a pitifully few of them will be able to be obtained by us. Today, I've finally witnessed a battle between peerless geniuses. They're indeed more monstrous than the previous, and it's simply despairing. At this moment, the Spring and Autumn Pavilion was filled with endless discussions. No matter which level the geniuses sat on, they were all discussing the shocking chaotic battle that had just occurred. The Tao Discussion Lantern meeting would begin in a few days, and the domineering appearance of Demon God Lin at such a time caused many geniuses to feel pressured. So what if he's strong? He's offended peerless figures like Sha Luchan, Qing Lianer, and Zhongli Wuji, so he'll definitely suffer an unprecedented blow when the Tao Discussion Lantern meeting begins. Perhaps He might even suffer calamity because of this. There were many geniuses who were extremely disgruntled in their hearts. They'd always taken Lin Sun to be someone who didn't deserve his reputation and was someone who deceived the world. Now, the more dazzling Lin Sun's display was, the more aggrieved they felt in their hearts. Exactly. This demon god Lin only came from the lower world. No matter how formidable his strength is, he's only an independent cultivator. But it just so happens that he's arrogant and daring to the extreme. He's probably been taken to be a thorn in everyone's side since a long time ago after he caused such a storm. As they were conversing, someone suddenly laughed and said, "All of you vulgar beings are sarcastic, and your words are sour. All you can do is grumble here. If all of you were to really face that demon god Lin, then you'd probably be terrified right away." "Who is it?" Instantly, the faces of many geniuses sank, and their gazes shot towards the source of the voice in unison. It was a young monk dressed in a white monk's robe. He had a thin figure, and he was elegant and otherworldly. He sat there casually and was brewing tea with a purple clay teapot. His brows were clear, and his forehead was smooth and clean. His eyes were clear like stars and surged with wisdom. Just a glance at him made one feel like he was pure and untainted. All the geniuses narrowed their eyes as they sensed that the young monk was extraordinary. But everyone present was a genius after all. Someone immediately sneered. "May I know which temple or ancient temple this friend is from? Why are you speaking so arrogantly? You don't have the bearing of a monk at all." The young monk smiled and casually picked up a cup of tea. As he sipped, he said casually, "A monk doesn't lie. I'll say whatever I want to say. If all of you are disgruntled, feel free to seek out that demon god Lin and give it a try. If he doesn't cower, then consider it my loss." Everyone's expressions were very gloomy. This monk seemed calm, but his words were extremely sharp. As the saying goes, don't hit people in the face, and don't expose people's shortcomings. But it was obvious that this monk was very good at exposing people's scars. Everyone present was very repulsed and disgusted by him. However, before they could speak, the young monk stood up. His robe was clean and elegant, like a snow lotus, untainted by a speck of dust. What is a heavenly talent? The leader of the stars. It's a pity that only a small group of people here are worthy of such a title. He sighed softly as if he was a little dispirited. Then, he walked out of the pavilion of spring and autumn. Everyone's expressions became even more gloomy. This was equivalent to directly saying that they were not qualified to be called heavenly talents. You all seem to be disgruntled. Fine, I'll say it this time. 1 year from now, when the Heavenly Talents Golden List reappears in the ancient Desolation Realm, only the true Heavenly Talents from the 4 great worlds will be on it. And I'm afraid that most of you here are not qualified to be on the Heavenly Talents Golden List. His voice was as calm as water, ethereal and calm. When his voice faded away, the young monk's figure had already disappeared from the pavilion of spring and autumn. All the heavenly talents present were shocked and their expressions changed slightly. Heavenly Talents Golden List? It was the first time they had heard of it. On the 9th floor of the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn, a group of peerless heavenly talents sat cross-legged. There was Li Qinghuan, the successor of the Tsangmei Taoism sect, Mu Jianting, the successor of the Jade Void Temple, the successor of the Miluo Palace. There was also a group of successors from the Pure Land of Longevity in the southern Xian world, as well as some other peerless heavenly talents. There were more than 30 of them. Strictly speaking, the peerless heavenly talents sitting on the 9th floor of the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn represented the strongest of the younger generation in the Western Hung world. They had been discussing the details of the battle just now. They all had their own opinions about Lin Sun, but there was no dispute. The atmosphere was very peaceful. However, when the young monk appeared and said those words, it attracted everyone's attention. For a moment they were all silent. "Everyone, have you heard of the Heavenly Talents Golden List?" Someone broke the silence. Everyone shook their heads. It was also the first time they had heard of it. Even Bai Lingshi and the other successors from the Pure Land of Longevity in the southern Xian world were confused. It was also the first time they had heard of it. Then, have you figured out who that friend from the Buddhist sect is? The man continued to ask. For a time, everyone went silent once more. There were very few powers that belonged to the Buddhist sect in the West Hing region, and they'd never heard of such a maverick young Buddhist cultivator appearing in the younger generation. If I'm not mistaken, he is the successor of the great Zen temple in the sacred hermitage. Chapter 868. His voice was chilly like the gurgling of spring water, and it drifted out and caused one's mind to calm down. A young girl with a graceful figure and a temperament as cold as ice had appeared at the entrance to the 9th floor of the Pavilion of Spring and Autumn. She wore a plain dress, and a wooden hairpin was inserted into her black hair, revealing a fair and beautiful face. She looked to be only around the age of 17 or 18, and she was innately beautiful. Her ink-black brows were perfectly straight while her clear eyes were crystalline and translucent like gems, and she naturally carried a strand of a beautiful aura. At once, everyone stood up to greet him. Ji Xingyao. She was the current saintess of the number 1 sect in the West Ocean world, the Profound Inquisition Sword School. Moreover, she was reputed to be the leading figure of the younger generation, and she possessed a dazzling title that was sufficient to cause the world to exclaim with admiration. In the eyes of ordinary cultivators, Ji Xingyao was no different from the legendary fairy. Her status was transcendent. However, the reason why all the peerless figures here stood up to welcome him was not because of fear or reverence, but out of courtesy and respect. But without a doubt, this was a form of acknowledgement of Ji Xingyao's identity. Don't stand on ceremony, everyone. Ji Xingyao walked in. She was like a swaying green lotus. Her legs were long and slender, and her waist was slender. Even the plain dress she wore could not hide the perfect curves of her body. She did indeed possess an otherworldly beauty that was capable of stunning the world. Her bearing was chilly like snow, her skin glistening and translucent like jade, and she was like a celestial maiden that had descended from the heavens, causing others to be unable to help but feel ashamed of their inferiority and not dare have the slightest disrespect towards her. Even if it was some peerless figures present here, they couldn't help but praise in their hearts. Ji Xingyao really deserves to be a disciple of the profound Sikh sword school. Her bearing is peerless. It was even to the extent that many people had almost overlooked the fact that an old woman with snow-white hair was following behind Ji Xingyao. No wonder senior brother Yu Lingkong acted so solemnly and didn't hesitate to traverse an entire world and travel a great distance just to pay a visit to this disciple of the profound inquiry sword school that he's never met. Miss Ji's appearance can absolutely be said to be beautiful like a celestial maiden. A successor of the Pure Land of Longevity sighed with emotion. The others also deeply agreed. However, even though his voice was soft, it was still heard by Ji Xingyao. Especially when she heard the 3 words, Yu Lingkong, she frowned unnoticeably. Everyone, are you all curious why the successor of the great Zen temple of the Saint Hermit Land would suddenly appear here? Ji Xingyao sat there casually, appearing cold and unique. Her voice was clear and melodious, but it immediately attracted everyone's attention. This caused their hearts to tremble, and they sobered up completely. The Saint Hermit Land. This was an honorific that referred to those mysterious places that transcended the world and were unknown to the secular world. In the 4 realms of the ancient Desolation Realm, there were only 4 or 5 known sacred retreats. However, all of them were extremely mysterious and isolated from the rest of the world. Inside those sacred retreats, there were either ancient Taoist sects that had existed for a long time, or ancient clans lived there. Or perhaps, some secluded places still retained the style and heritage of the ancient times. For example, the great Zen temple was located in a sacred retreats in the Big Dipper world called the Western Paradise. It was a mysterious Buddhist sect that had an extremely long history and resources and reserves, and it could even cause some ancient Taoist sects in the world to dim in comparison. The young monk from before was actually from the great Zen temple of the Western Paradise, and this was truly shocking. It's very simple. A great era is about to arrive, and some ancient Taoist sects that are isolated from the rest of the world have started to make arrangements with the intention of seeking some fortune during this battle. Ji Xingyao continued, the successor of the great Zen temple from before is called Xingzhenzi. He's elegant, outstanding, and possesses extraordinary natural talent. He's born with the natural talent of the Buddha bone lotus heart, and his strength can only be described as unfathomable amongst his peers. The expressions of everyone present changed. Ji Xingyao was the leading figure of the younger generation in the Western Ocean world, and she was a peerless genius that deserved her reputation. Even she praised Xingzhenzi, who possessed the Buddha bone lotus heart, as unfathomable, so there was no doubt that he was definitely a peerless figure as well. Could it be that Xingzhenzi intends to participate in the Tao discussion lantern discussion as well? Someone asked, and it instantly drew the attention of the other peerless figures. Just moments ago, Devil God Lin had made a domineering appearance and caused a world-shocking chaotic battle. Now, another peerless figure from the great Zen temple, Xingzhenzi, had made an appearance, so how could anyone not pay attention to this? He won't be participating, Ji Xingyao said. According to my knowledge, Xingzhenzi has come here for no other reason than to witness the elegant bearing of the geniuses of the younger generation in the Western Ocean world, and he isn't interested in the Tao discussion lantern discussion. She paused for a moment before her starry eyes were suffused with brilliant divine radiance, and her voice carried a trace of surprise. However, I heard that Xingzhenzi is interested in the Genius Gold rankings that will be released in the entire ancient Desolation region in a year. The hearts of everyone jerked as they realized that it was unusual, and they inquired about it. Ji Xingyao didn't conceal it and said, "My knowledge is limited, and I've only seen a few words about the Genius Gold rankings in the ancient books of my sect." According to what she said, the Genius Gold rankings had existed since the ancient times countless years ago. There were 100 rankings on this rankings, and only the 100 strongest peerless geniuses in the world were able to be ranked on it. According to rumor, during the ancient times, for the sake of competing for a position on the Genius Gold rankings, the geniuses of the younger generation in the myriad of worlds had once carried out innumerable unprecedented battles that shook the world. Ji Xingyao spoke slowly with a clear and melodious voice, and it caused all the peerless figures present here to be unable to calm down. It's not exaggerated to say that so long as one's name is capable of appearing on the Genius Gold rankings, then one can be said to be one of the most dazzling geniuses of an era. The hall was deathly silent while the emotions of everyone rose and fell. After they found out about the origins of the Genius Gold rankings, it caused all of them to be shocked in their hearts. In the boundless ancient times, geniuses were like the array of stars in the sky, and they were innumerable. There were innate divine children, peerless geniuses, geniuses with extraordinary natural talent, descendants of gods with formidable bloodlines. It was obvious what sort of heaven-defying ability these geniuses possessed when they were able to ascend onto the Genius Gold rankings all those years ago. This isn't just a symbol of identity and strength, it even represents the possibility of stepping foot into the life and death realm and becoming a peak king. Ji Xingyao changed the topic, while her clear eyes flowed with unusual divine radiance. The Extinction King realm is extremely ethereal, mysterious, and impossible to see. It's unreal like a legend, but according to the ancient rumors, so long as one's able to ascend onto the Genius Gold rankings, then one would possess the hope to strive for the path to the true Extinction King realm. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present here was shocked. All of these peerless figures were utterly unable to maintain their calm, and all of them revealed various expressions while divine lights emanated from their eyes. There's actually such a rumor. A genius gold rankings is actually related to the path to the Extinction King realm. That's impossible to see like a legend, and this was undoubtedly too shocking. Everyone, after countless years, the genius gold rankings is about to appear once more in the world. This undoubtedly means that a true great era is about to arrive. As a fellow Taoist, I hope that even more people from our West Hung world will be able to ascend onto the rankings. Ji Xingyao spoke with a calm expression that carried a wisp of a pure and holy aura. At this moment, she finally revealed the bearing that belonged to the number one holy maiden of West Hung world. In an instant, everyone present here was moved, and they firmly remembered this piece of information. Of course, what we have to do now is the curtains to the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival that's about to begin. Ji Xingyao seemed to have taken control of the right to speak, and merely a single sentence from her drew the attention of everyone in the surroundings once more. The Lantern Festival this time is bound to surpass the past, and it'll be unprecedentedly grand. There will be numerous unexpected and formidable figures participating in it. Moreover, this means that if one wants to seize great fortune during the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, then the competition will be even more brutal and intense than before. When she spoke up to hear, a wave of applause suddenly resounded, and along with this applause, a young man in green robes and a jade belt with a carefree bearing walked into the 9th level of the Spring and Autumn Pavilion. Miss G is right. A great era is about to arrive, and all the geniuses in the world are going to compete and strive for supremacy. If one wants to become eminent, then it's bound to be even more brutal than before. Only a small group of people are able to rise up, whereas most of the others are bound to be eliminated and reduced to stepping stones. The young man's voice was warm like jade, clear like a bell, and carried a unique rhythm. His appearance could be said to be extraordinary to the extreme. He had slanted brows, starry eyes, fair skin, black hair that hung down his back, and he seemed extraordinary. As soon as he appeared, he drew the gazes of everyone present here. Bai Lingshi and the other disciples of the paradisiacal lands stood up and bowed. Senior brother Yu. Without a doubt, this young man was a peerless figure of the southern profound world's paradisiacal lands, and he was a peerless genius that possessed extraordinary natural talent since a young age. Yu Lingkong. He really could be said to be an impeccable figure. His physique was superb, his natural talent extraordinary, and he possessed a peerless bearing. Moreover, his identity was extremely renowned. The Yu clan he resided in had existed since the ancient times until now, and it was a renowned colossus in the southern profound world. Moreover, it possessed a true saint that resided within it. On the other hand, he'd become a disciple of the paradisiacal lands. It could be said that in terms of identity and background, most geniuses in the world were far from being able to compare to him. This was Yu Lingkong. He was like a favored child of the heavens, and it was very difficult for others to feel envious of him because the gap between them was truly too huge. The eyes of everyone present here focused, and many even revealed a trace of fear. Even though they were peerless geniuses, they still felt a shapeless pressure when facing a peerless figure like Yu Lingkong who possessed great karmic luck and a great background. Only Ji Xingyao frowned. She seemed to be unable to say that she welcomed Yu Lingkong's sudden appearance, but she didn't reveal any aversion towards him, and she could barely be considered to be indifferent. Yu Lingkong seemed to have not noticed all of this. He grinned and directly walked over to sit by Ji Xingyao's side, and then he said, "Unfortunately, I was a step too late. I heard that Devil God Lin caused a world-shocking chaotic battle earlier. It's truly a pity that I wasn't able to witness it." Devil God Lin. No one noticed that when she heard this form of address, a wisp of irrepressible waves arose in Ji Xingyao's heart, and a wisp of imperceptible resentment flashed on her peerlessly beautiful face. Moreover, Ji Xingyao felt even more dislike towards Yu Lingkong, who mentioned devil god Lin. P.S. 1. I'm looking for a guaranteed monthly ticket on the first day of the month. Chapter 869. Tut tut, Brother Lin, from today onwards, great waves are bound to arise in the Westing world, and your fame is bound to rise to a new height. In an inn in Star Cliff City, Bai Fenglu was beaming with joy and spittle flying. He was very excited, and his old face glowed with excitement when he thought of the shocking melee that had just occurred. Brother Lin? Lin Sun despised the old man in his heart. The old man was so eager to get close to Lin Sun without a trace. Lin Sun, I feel that after today's battle, I'm afraid you will fall into a more passive position, Yu Jiaming pondered and said. Bai Fenglu was startled. Soon after, he solemnly said, that is indeed a problem. After all, you unleashed your ferocious might today, and nearly killed Qing Lian. Those experts from the Green Phoenix tribe will definitely hate you to the bone. In addition, Sha Luchan, who was defeated by you, can't bear this defeat, and it's very likely that he will attack you again at the beginning of the Dao Discussion Lantern Festival. Yu Jiaming shook his head. Not only that, there are countless peerless figures gathered near the pavilion of spring and autumn today. After witnessing this battle, it's hard to guarantee that they won't have some other thoughts about Lin Sun. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes. In fact, when he fought with Sha Luchan and Qing Lian this time, he realized that it was almost impossible to kill them under the watchful eyes of so many people. The reason was very simple. Both of them were peerless figures, and they must be escorted by experts when they came to participate in the Dao Discussion Lantern Festival. In addition, Lin Sun suspected that peerless figures like Sha Luchan and Qing Lian must have many life-saving trump cards in their hands. After all, once they were killed, it would definitely be a heavy blow to the forces behind them, and the loss would be too heavy. At that time, the appearance of Grandma Golden Crane had undoubtedly confirmed Lin Sun's guess. In other words, it wasn't so easy to kill peerless figures like Sha Luchan and Qing Lian. Thinking of this, Lin Sun thought of something and asked, Old Bai, do you know Grandma Golden Crane? Bai Fenglu said casually, she's a formidable figure, and her seniority in the Profound Ask Sword School is extremely high. Even the current sect master of the Profound Ask Sword School, Mu Tsangxue, has to be courteous to her. When he spoke up to hear, Bai Fenglu's eyes suddenly opened wide, and then he slapped his thigh and said, How could I have forgotten? Since Granny Golden Crane has made an appearance today, then it's definitely because the current Holy Maiden of the Profound Inquiry Sword School, Ji Xingyao, has arrived. Ji Xingyao? Lin Sun looked a little strange and asked, What do you mean? Bai Fenglu explained. Presently, practically everyone in Westing region knows that the Profound Inquisition Sword House didn't hesitate to ask Granny Golden Crane to follow by Ji Xingyao's side for the sake of protecting her. This also means that wherever Granny Golden Crane appears, Ji Xingyao will be nearby. So she's Ji Xingyao in an instant. The image of an aloof and quiet girl with a temperament as cold as snow emerged in Lin Sun's mind. She was dressed in a black dress and had a delicate figure. Half of her face was covered by a silver mask, and only a pair of clear eyes and plump and rosy lips could be seen. The mysterious masked girl who fought with him in the Pine Mist Taoist field in Yen capital. At the thought of this, Lin Sun was a little speechless. That extremely proud girl actually asked about Ji Xingyao, the current Holy Maiden of the Profound Inquisition Sword School? Who would dare to believe it? Moreover, Lin Sun felt a little guilty because when he fought with Ji Xingyao, he accidentally bumped into the girl's buttocks, which led to some kind of misunderstanding and made the latter furious. If he hadn't left quickly, it was unknown how many disputes would have arisen. What a headache! The corners of Lin Sun's mouth twitched imperceptibly. If he had known that the extremely proud girl was Ji Xingyao, he would have definitely kept a respectful distance from her. This girl was praised as the leader of the young generation in Westing region. Like a fairy from heaven, she was fanatically pursued by countless practitioners. If he had any connection with her, it would definitely lead to a lot of immeasurable troubles. Brother Lin, why do I feel that you seem to have some special feelings for Ji Xingyao? Suddenly, Bai Fengluo's old face came over sneakily, and his face was full of ambiguity and curiosity. Slap. Lin Sun slapped the back of his head and said angrily, "Don't get any ideas. I have nothing to do with this extremely proud woman." However, Bai Fenglu became more and more suspicious. He grimaced and said, "You haven't even met Ji Xingyao. How do you know that she is very proud?" It had to be said that Bai Fengluo's sense of smell was really too damn sensitive. He deserved to be a man who aspired to become the king of news. Seeing that Lin Sun's face was a little dark, Bai Fenglu immediately smiled and stopped talking about this topic. However, he was extremely ecstatic in his heart. The sense of smell that he had developed after many years of inquiring about information told him that demon god Lin definitely had an affair with Ji Xingyao. Oh my, he just hooked up with a girl from the pure land of longevity, and now he has an inexplicable relationship with the current holy maiden of the profound Inquisition sword school. Is demon god Lin going to play a love triangle? Or are the two girls fighting for a husband? Bai Fenglu thought and secretly made up his mind to dig out the inside story. If there was a chance, once this news was released, it would definitely shock the world. If Lin Sun knew this old fool's thoughts, he would probably kill him immediately. Lin Sun was asking Yu Jianming about the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. According to Yu Jianming, all the talents who participated in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival needed to undergo a series of tests. At that time, the green lamp tree of ancient Wei would appear on the azure parasol mountain and condense bronze flower bud. At the same time, the whole azure parasol mountain would be covered with a layer of mysterious prohibition, turning the whole mountain into a magical secret realm. If one wanted to participate in the Tao discussion and seize fortuitous encounters, then one had to pass through layer upon layer of tests and enter the deepest depths of the secret realm. Only then would one be able to see the true green lantern tree of the ancient Tao and find the fortune and fortuitous encounter that countless people dreamt of. Hearing this, Lin Sun looked a little strange. Azure Parasol Mountain, green lamp tree of ancient Wei, secret realm, layers of tests, opportunities, and opportunities. He always felt that this was not like a Tao discussion, but more like a selection of disciples. Only those who passed the screening and tests could get the opportunities. At this moment, Bai Fenglu came over and said mysteriously, "According to the ancient records left behind by the ancestors of my clan, the Azure Parasol Mountain was a sacred mountain in ancient times. A supreme orthodoxy was established on it, and there were many sages overseeing it. They taught and explained the profound truths of the great Tao. They had countless disciples. However, due to some unknown reason, this supreme Taoism did not survive. Instead, it was destroyed in the long river of time. According to the information collected by our ancestors, this Azure Parasol Mountain should be the mountain gate left by that supreme Taoism. And the green lamp tree of ancient Wei is the tree of inheritance of that supreme Taoism. It is the origin and foundation of this Taoism." Lin Sun and Yu Jianming were shocked. How could there be such a rumor about Azure Parasol Mountain and the green lamp tree of ancient Wei? Of course, this is just speculation. The things of ancient times are too distant and ethereal. No one can see the whole truth, Bai Fenglu said. Even so, Lin Sun vaguely felt that this rumor was very likely to be true. As time went by, 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Lin Sun did not show up in public again. He had been adjusting his breath and tempering his cultivation in order to be in the peak state when the Tao Discussion Lantern show began. Yu Jianming did the same. Only Bai Fenglu had been inquiring about the news outside these 2 days. This old man could not stay idle for a quarter of an hour. He put all his energy into inquiring about the news. He was worthy of being a senior secret agent of the Wind Whisperer clan. During this period, more and more talented people from different areas of the West Hing territory poured into Star Cliff City. Among them, there were many peerless figures who were famous all over the world. In this way, Star Cliff City became more and more lively and prosperous. Cultivators could be seen everywhere in the streets and alleys. Even Heaven's favorites, who were rarely seen in the past, could be seen everywhere. It was truly a spectacle. At the same time, along with the curtains to the Tao discussion lantern show being drawn, the entire Star Cliff City had become the center of attention of the entire West Hing territory. The gazes of countless great powers and clans converged onto Star Cliff City in unison, and they were waiting and paying attention to the latest news. It could be predicted that the Tao discussion lantern show this time was bound to be filled with dazzling stars and an unprecedentedly grand occasion. Moreover, countless battles and competitions that could be said to be world-shocking would definitely occur. Right on the day before the Tao discussion lantern show began, an extremely shocking piece of news spread throughout Star Cliff City, and it caused a mighty uproar. Someone spoke with certainty. Demonic god Lin possessed heaven-defying fortune and even possessed a saint artifact. He could be said to be peerless, and this allowed him to transform from a youth from the lower dimensions into a peerless figure with a terrifying combat strength that was capable of crushing his peers. As soon as this news spread, Bai Fenglu turned pale with fright, and he was completely unable to sit still and hurriedly went to look for Lin Sun. A wisp of gloominess instantly arose in Lin Sun's heart when he found out about all of this. The curtains to the Tao discussion lantern show would be drawn tomorrow, yet it just so happened that such news had spread today. Obviously, someone had intentionally seized this opportunity to target him. Merely the word saint artifact was sufficient to make anyone's eyes go red with envy, and even some old fellows of the King realm were tempted and coveted by it. The release of such news about Lin Sun was undoubtedly instigating and stirring up discord in the hearts of everyone, and it instantly pushed Lin Sun to the forefront. In this way, it would definitely draw the attention of numerous gazes. Once someone was unable to restrain himself, then it was bound to cause trouble. In this world, incidents of killing and seizing treasures were common occurrences. As the saying goes, a man's wealth is his own ruin. When faced with a peerless treasure like a saint artifact, not to mention ordinary cultivators, even old fellows of the King realm would be unable to refrain from seizing it. Chapter 870. The situation is not good. Bai Fenglu was a senior spy of the Wind Whisperer clan. He often spread all kinds of news, and his sense of smell was more sensitive than that of the practitioners. He judged in an instant that a storm against Lin Sun was coming. The reason was very simple. Lin Sun rose too fast. Half a year ago, even the West Ocean world didn't know of his existence. But in a short period of a few months, he'd risen domineeringly, revealed his extraordinary ability, and caused countless storms. First, he had an unprecedented duel with the mysterious masked girl in Yen capital. Then, he became enemies with many strong practitioners of the Black Sea Dog clan and staged a world-famous hunting in the wilderness. Until now, he had defeated Sha Luchan and almost killed Qing Lianer before the eyes of so many geniuses. Now, everyone in the world knew that fiend god Lin came from the lower realm. Yet, a youth from the lower realm had risen to prominence so rapidly. He had already become a peerless elite whose name shook the Western Hung world, so it was hard not to think about it. Under such circumstances, when news spread that demon god Lin possessed a great opportunity and even possessed a peerless sage treasure, it was obvious what the other cultivators would think when they learned of this. Who on earth is it? Lin Sun frowned and fell into deep thought. Since he entered the ancient desolation realm, he had indeed offended many people, but he couldn't determine who did it. Because there were too many suspects, such as Sha Yutang, Sha Luchan, Qing Lianer's Zhongli Wuji, but no matter who it was, such a news had been released, and there was no need for any conclusive evidence to make him the target of public criticism. Brother Lin, do you really have a holy treasure? After hesitating for a long time, Bai Fenglu couldn't help but ask. Lin Sun squinted at him and said, "What do you think?" Bai Fenglu was embarrassed, and he hurriedly shook his head and said, "How would I know? But no matter if you possess a saint artifact or not, the current situation really isn't optimistic. The Tao Discussion Lantern discussion is about to begin tomorrow, yet something like this just had to happen at such a critical moment." Lin Sun nodded. His black eyes were deep and cold. No matter who it was, if they wanted to use this Tao Discussion Lantern Festival to deal with him, they would have to pay the price. In the final analysis, you rose too fast. Yu Jianming, who was at the side, had a complicated expression on his face. It carried a trace of envy and a kind of emotion. After that, he restrained his feelings and said seriously, "It's easy to avoid a spear in the open, but it's difficult to avoid a stab in the dark. The person that spread the news this time is absolutely extremely sinister and ruthless. He seized the right opportunity and practically didn't waste any effort to make you a target. I can predict that when you participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern gathering, there'll surely be someone that'll be unable to endure such bewitchment and make a move against you." Bai Fenglu sighed. "It's more than that. Everyone knows that Lin Sun came from the mortal world. He has no background and no one to rely on. Under such circumstances, no matter who wants to deal with Lin Sun, they will have no scruples or fears." What he said was the truth. If Lin Sun was the successor of an ancient orthodoxy in the West Hung world, even if people knew that he had good fortune and possessed a holy treasure, they would have to consider the consequences when they wanted to deal with him. But obviously, Lin Sun didn't have such conditions. Seeing that both of them were worried, Lin Sun couldn't help but smile. "No matter who he is, I'm going to kill Zhongli Wuji at the Tao Discussion Lantern gathering. If anyone else dares to jump out, I'll kill him as well." These words were casual, but they seemed extremely overbearing and full of killing intent. Suddenly, both Bai Fenglu and Yu Jianming were shocked. They knew that Lin Sun's killing intent had been aroused. After a while, Bai Fenglu scratched his head and said, "Why do I suddenly feel a little pity for those blind opponents?" Yu Jianming agreed and said, "I think so too." In Star Cliff City, a storm was brewing. After the news about Lin Sun was released, it caused a great sensation. If it were in the past, many people would definitely scoff at it and wouldn't believe such rumors. But now, many practitioners had confirmed that demon god Lin was a peerless figure who deserved his reputation. He was so fierce that even Sha Luchan and Qing Lianer were no match for him. Under such circumstances, Lin Sun's fame also rose steadily and he received all kinds of unexpected praise. However, as the news about him came out, most practitioners began to believe that Lin Sun had a great fortune and possessed a peerless holy treasure. Otherwise, how could a young man from the mortal world have such a terrifying combat power? What kind of fortune could make a young man from the mortal world transform into a peerless talent who can suppress his peers? Countless practitioners were excited and made various speculations. They thought that Lin Sun had either obtained some kind of heaven-defying inheritance or some kind of cultivation treasure. Some even suspected that Lin Sun had obtained the mantle of a sage. Otherwise, how could he obtain a peerless holy treasure? In short, all kinds of speculations and discussions invisibly made many practitioners have some subtle ideas. Even some talents more or less looked strange when talking about this matter. Although they didn't say anything on the surface, they already had many ideas in their hearts. This is reasonable. A young man from the mortal world transformed into a peerless talent like a golden dragon. It would be abnormal if he didn't obtain some kind of great fortune. This was Shaoyuchan's reaction after hearing the news. "Junior brother Xie, is it true that you and Lin Sun came from the same place?" Zhuo Quanglan of the Feather Sword sect couldn't stay calm and couldn't help asking. Shai Yutong opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. He was quite aggrieved and didn't know how to answer. In the end, it was no different from praising Lin Sun. Junior sister Lingshire, is it true that your friend has obtained some incredible great fortune as rumor has it? Even those successors from the pure land of longevity in the South Xian world couldn't stay calm and asked by Lingshire, "Do you think it's a so-called fortune that made him what he has today?" Bai Lingshire asked. There was a trace of displeasure on her beautiful and refined face. The road of cultivation is to cultivate one's own Taoist heart. The so-called fortune and fortune are just icing on the cake. The key is whether one's own Taoist heart is firm or not. Everyone was indifferent and obviously didn't believe her. Only Yu Lingkong smiled and praised from the side. Junior sister Lingshire is right. The rise of any peerless figure isn't decided by a single fortune. If it's really like that, then why would I have to travel so far to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival? She spoke casually, yet it carried a strand of arrogance. Everyone instantly nodded. Indeed, if it was in terms of fortune and fortune, Yu Lingkong could absolutely be called the darling of the heavens. In the Yu clan there was a true saint. Moreover, his status in the pure land of longevity was extremely extraordinary, and he was favored and taken care of by some old fellows. So, he could obtain any fortune or fortune he wanted at any moment. But it was very obvious that Yu Lingkong's current status was absolutely not decided by fortune and fortune. In this world, there was no lack of figures of noble birth and extraordinary talent. But because of their bad temperament they were affected by all sorts of things, and in the end they achieved nothing and were reduced to arrogant and domineering profligates. They didn't make any achievements on the path of cultivation, and they could only rely on the power of the clan to act like a tyrant. For such people, it was impossible for them to become a peerless figure whose name shook the world even if they were given great fortune and fortune. However, to everyone's surprise, Yu Lingkong changed the topic at this moment and said, "However, besides his own reasons, Lin Sun's current achievements are definitely inseparable from the help of fortune and fortune." Everyone was stunned. Even Bai Lingshire was slightly stunned. Yu Lingkong said to himself, otherwise, as a young man with neither foundation nor background, it would have been impossible for him to enter the ancient desolation realm from the inferior world, let alone become a peerless figure in the West Hing region. Someone couldn't help but ask, "Senior brother Yu, in this way, you also believe the rumor about demon god Lin?" Yu Lingkong smiled and said, "Whether I believe it or not, the facts are there. When the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival begins, we will naturally find out whether it is true or not." Everyone agreed with him. Only Bai Lingshire was deeply worried. Even Yu Lingkong approved of Lin Sun. It could be imagined that after this news came out, it would inevitably bring unpredictable influence to Lin Sun, which was a disaster rather than a blessing. Ho ho, in a quiet courtyard, when Granny Golden Crane heard the news about Lin Sun, she showed a disdainful smile. She had experienced so many things in her life that she almost instantly concluded that someone deliberately added fuel to the flames in the dark and wanted to take this opportunity to kill Lin Sun with a borrowed knife. This method is really a bit despicable, but it can also be seen that the person who spread the news is definitely not strong enough to compete with Lin Sun. Otherwise, he wouldn't have to use such a small trick. But then again, this trick is really effective. Lin Sun is in trouble this time. He will probably be badly battered. Granny Golden Crane hit the nail on the head and pointed out the reason. However, it made Ji Xingyao feel quite uncomfortable when she heard it. She couldn't help frowning and said, "Why do you still mention this guy? Even if he is badly battered, what does it have to do with me? I can't wait to see him make a fool of himself." Granny Golden Crane said patiently, "Miss, don't you think now is the best time to win Lin Sun over? Now everyone knows that he has no one to rely on. We can take him as a disciple of our sect. In this way we can not only solve his trouble, but also recruit a peerless disciple for our sect. It can be said to be the best of both worlds." But Ji Xingyao said flatly, "Impossible. This bastard is too hateful and shameless. I have already decided to teach him an unforgettable lesson in this Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. How can I try to win him over? Don't even think about it. Granny Golden Crane smiled helplessly and thought to herself, Lin Sun really crossed the line when we were in Yen capital. Miss has never suffered such a big loss in her life. It's a pity that such a good seedling will be wasted. Early the next morning, the sky had just lit up when a strange fluctuation suddenly surged from the heavens and the earth and spread out, quickly drowning Star Cliff City. Chapter 871. A red sun slowly rose in the sky, and the first rays of dawn were dazzling. The heavens and the earth were filled with a divine aura, and it spread out and created a strange fluctuation that instantly alarmed all the cultivators in Star Cliff City. The Tao Lantern discussion has begun. Cries of pleasant surprise rose and fell like a gale that shook the entire city. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In an instant, countless streaks flew out from within the city, and they were dense like the rain and resplendent. All of them whistled as they flashed out of the city. Dark Parasol Mountain is about to appear. Quickly, this is an unprecedented grand event. Even if we're unable to participate, we have to occupy a favorable spot to watch it. Motherfucker! Don't push. Clamorous waves of voices resounded in the heavens and the earth, and it was bustling and clamorous to the extreme. Roar! An azure flame Qilin soared into the sky while seething with blazing divine flames, and it traversed the sky with an aura like that of a king. Everywhere it passed, all experts retreated. Mu Jianting and the others from the Void Jade Temple sat upright on it with an elegant bearing. On the other side, a clear cry resounded out like a thunderclap from the 9 heavens, and then an expanse of golden light flashed up. It was a dark gold sparrow that was over 100 m long and seemed to be made of immortal gold. It carried the group from Mi Luo Palace on its back and instantly vanished in the sky with extreme speed. Rumble! The ground trembled as the enormous dark jade dragon elephant carried Zhongli Wuji's group on its back as it charged forward, and it gave rise to surging dust and dirt. Nearby, a white jade lightning lion that was bathed in dazzling lightning let out a thunderous roar as it suddenly charged into the sky. On its back, Lei Qianjun from the barbaric lightning clan stood ramrod straight while his clothes fluttered. Roar! Suddenly, waves of roars that sounded like the roar of a dragon resounded through the heavens and the earth, and then an expanse of peerlessly dazzling golden light whistled through the sky. Shockingly, it was a golden 9-headed WRM that carried a divine palace on its back as it soared through the sky. When looked at from afar, it was simply like a golden sun moving through the sky, and it was too shocking. Without a doubt, it was an heir from the southern profound world's paradises of longevity. For a time, divine beasts fluttered in the sky, ferocious beasts galloped, and various streaks interweaved within Star Cliff City. The magnificent and gorgeous scene could absolutely be said to be unprecedented, and it was rarely seen in 1,000 years. This was the influence of the Tao Discussion Lantern Banquet. So many people? Lin Sun, Yu Jianming, and Bai Fenglu also set off for the outside of the city. Most of them are here to watch the show, and only geniuses like you are able to truly participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. Bai Fenglu sighed. His old face was full of sorrow. He said slowly, "Back then, I was a peerless genius admired by the people of the Wind Speech tribe. I had the ability to rule the world and the spirit to shock the world. I only regret that I was born at the wrong time. I had the ambition to prove the world, but I could only sigh in vain." The more the old man boasted, the more outrageous he was. Lin Sun looked at him with contempt and didn't bother to pay attention to him. Before long, they had flown out of the city. In an instant, Lin Sun's pupils shrank. At this moment, the boundless wilderness in the extreme distance was actually bathed in a layer of a divine aura. A myriad of strands of auspicious light descended from the sky like a waterfall, and they were dazzling and blazing, causing the entire area to seem dreamlike. Rumble! The earth there was moving and emitting a dull tremor. It seemed as if something was about to break out of the ground. Faintly, strands of the sonorous voice of the great way resounded between heaven and earth. It was ethereal and solemn like the voice of ancient sages reciting scriptures. The divine light descends from the sky and the sound of the great way is born. This is the sign of the appearance of the azure mountain. Some older practitioners cried out with excitement. All of a sudden, countless practitioners sped up their pace and rushed toward that direction, looking impatient. Lin Sun couldn't help but be moved. It hadn't even appeared, but it had caused such a grand phenomenon. The origin of the azure mountain was bound to be extraordinary. Before long, numerous clear flowers of the great way emerged in the sky, and they rustled down and fluttered in the air in a divine and ethereal manner. After that, there were phenomena such as dragons soaring in the sky, immortal birds fluttering in the air, divine rainbows piercing through the sky, and auspicious clouds piling up. It made the world seem like a paradise of immortals, and it was extremely miraculous. Many cultivators gasped. It was the first time they'd participated in the Tao Discussion Lantern Conference, so how could they have imagined that they would actually witness such a spectacle? On the other hand, the gazes of some geniuses burned while their hearts shook, and they were filled with yearning. They were about to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Conference, so they naturally couldn't help but let their imaginations run wild when they witnessed such an unparalleled phenomenon. The commotion caused by the appearance of Azure Mountain this time is too extraordinary, and it's something that has never occurred in the past. Could it be that it's really because the grand era is about to arrive that caused this place to become different? Some older practitioners were moved and extremely shocked. They'd witnessed the grand occasions of the Tao Discussion Lantern Conference in the past, but it had never been like this. It seemed to be so miraculous, and it was absolutely unprecedented. All those years ago, when the current sect master of the Profound Inquiry Sword House, Mu Tsangxue, was still young, he'd once obtained great fortune during the Tao Discussion Lantern Conference, and he established his current status in one go. I wonder which peerless figure will be able to obtain such fortune this time. Someone thought from afar. Bang! Suddenly, the heavens and the earth that were suffused with divine light and seethed with radiance suddenly rumbled, and it was like the sound of the chaos being split apart and surged through the heavens and the earth. At the same time, the sky split open to reveal a divine mountain. This mountain stood towering in the sky, and it was 30 kilometers tall. It was majestic and lofty, and its entire body seethed with violet, auspicious light that seemed material. It was too tall, and it seemed to lead to the heavens. It was brilliant, majestic, and boundlessly large. It caused others to feel tiny like ants when they looked at it from afar, and it was like the place where the gods of legend resided. Azure Mountain. At this moment, a dense expanse of practitioners were distributed in the heavens and the earth like tidewater, but there was no clamor any longer. All of them were shocked by the scene before them, and their eyes were fixed on it. On the other hand, even if some of the older generation had seen the true appearance of Azure Mountain a long time ago, they couldn't help but be shocked at this moment. This mountain was truly too miraculous, and it didn't seem like it could exist in the world. If the legend is true, then the resources and reserves of the supreme orthodoxy that resided on this mountain during the primeval times would definitely be terrifying. Lin Sun exclaimed endlessly with admiration in his heart. Look, that's the ancient path green lamp tree. Suddenly someone shouted. After that, everyone noticed that at the mountainside of Dark Parasol Mountain, the surging violet-colored auspicious radiance had suddenly split apart to reveal a 3 kilometers tall divine tree. Its entire body seemed as if it was cast from bronze, and it had a simple luster and carried a dense aura of age. Its trunk was thick like a coiled dragon, and its bark was cracked and covered densely in striations. Moreover, its branches were strong and simple like blades, and they stretched out towards the surroundings. At this moment, numerous bronze flower buds hung on those branches, and they were like lanterns that emanated multicolored and gorgeous divine flames that rained down like a rain of flames. When looked at from afar, it was like numerous small suns hung on the divine tree. They were dazzling, miraculous, and emanated brilliant light that illuminated the heavens and the earth to the point it was translucent and gorgeous. 10, 100, 1,000. My God! Over 1,000 bronze lanterns have actually appeared at the same time this time. This is something that has never happened in the past. At this moment, even a figure of lofty status like Granny Golden Crane was shocked, and it was impossible for her to calm down. Every single lantern represented a fortuitous encounter. Didn't 1,000 lanterns represent 1,000 fortuitous encounters? When she thought of this, she trembled all over because it was absolutely an unprecedented fortuitous encounter. Perhaps it wouldn't appear again in the future. Many cultivators were stunned, and they were shocked speechless. The Tao Discussion Lantern Conference this time was too unusual. All the signs indicated that Azure Mountain and the ancient path green lamp tree had undergone an unprecedented change, and the fortuitous encounter that was born was bound to be different from the past. Brother Lin, you must seize this opportunity. Bai Fenglu was so excited that his lips trembled. Although I can't participate in it, I'm sure that a peerless fortuitous encounter will definitely descend in this Tao Discussion Lantern Conference. If I can seize it, I'll absolutely benefit endlessly, and even becoming a king or saint won't be a remote possibility. When he spoke up to hear, he patted Lin Sun on the shoulder and said, "Don't forget that the current sect master of the Profound Sword School, Mu Tsangxue, obtained a great fortuitous encounter here. Only a few hundred years have passed since then, yet he's only a thread away from stepping into the saint realm." On the other hand, the Tao Discussion Lantern Conference this time is completely different from the past, and the fortuitous encounter will only be greater. If I don't seize it, then I'll absolutely regret it for my entire lifetime. There was utterly no need for Bai Fenglio's reminder, and Lin Sun would go all out. At this moment, it wasn't just Lin Sun, all the other peerless figures were exhorted by the great figures by their sides to go all out. Because they discerned that the Tao Discussion Lantern Conference this time was too unusual. Bang! Suddenly, a practitioner charged out from the area ahead with the intention of being the first to approach Azure Mountain. However, he wasn't even able to approach it when he was blasted flying, and he fell to the ground and coughed up blood without end. Everyone recovered from their shock and burst into an uproar. "Hee, you don't possess sufficient strength, yet you want to participate in the Lantern Conference? How laughable!" Someone sneered. Since the ancient times, only geniuses can participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Conference. How could it be so simple? You don't have the qualifications, so give up as soon as possible. Someone spoke indifferently. On the other hand, Lin Sun acutely noticed that before that practitioner was blasted flying, he'd collided with a shapeless and mysterious restriction. Perhaps it's precisely because of the existence of this restriction that ordinary practitioners can only stop here and are unable to ascend the mountain. Only now did Lin Sun come to a sudden understanding. Why were only those geniuses participating in the Tao Discussion Lantern Conference? It was very simple. Ordinary practitioners didn't possess the strength to approach Azure Mountain at all. This is the energy of the laws of Azure Mountain. Not only are ordinary practitioners unable to participate, even old freaks that have surpassed the reincarnation evolution realm are unable to enter. The voice that was transmitted through the wind explained, "In the past, there were once old freaks at the King realm who intended to enter, yet they were badly injured and returned in failure in the end. Moreover, according to rumor, a saint had once personally arrived here all those years ago, yet he merely took a glance at this mountain before turning around and leaving. Perhaps this means that even a saint might be unable to enter this mountain." Lin Sun was shocked in his heart. Even a saint is unable to surmount it? All of a sudden, The way he looked at Azure Mountain changed again. If that supreme orthodoxy still existed in the past, it would have been destroyed in the long river of time. However, only this mountain had experienced the vicissitudes of time and survived until now. This was too shocking. Just what kind of secrets were hidden on this mountain? Perhaps, when one really set foot on it, one would be able to get a glimpse of some clues. Chapter 872. Azure Parasol Mountain stood in the void, towering beyond the clouds. Its whole body was filled with purple divine light, like a towering and ancient divine mountain from ancient times. Countless practitioners stood in front of the mountain with blazing eyes, staring at the ancient path green lamp tree halfway up the mountain. Its trunk was as thick as a horned dragon and seemed to be made of bronze. Its strong branches extended in all directions like blades and swords. More than 1,000 bronze flower buds were condensed on it, spewing divine light and dancing like a rain of fire. It was incomparably sacred. There was no doubt that this was a peerless opportunity. It had never been seen before. It had never been seen before. Boom! Sha Luchan, the young master of the Sea Shark clan, took action. His whole body surged with monstrous blood chi and crossed the void. Everyone immediately noticed a layer of mysterious restriction fluctuations arise in the heavens and the earth, and it was like a screen of light that lay across the heavens and the earth and obstructed others from approaching it. Buzz, when Sha Luchan approached, the layer of light curtain suddenly burst into brilliant Taoist light and enveloped Sha Luchan. Then, a miraculous scene appeared. Sha Luchan mysteriously shrank rapidly and finally turned into the size of an ant. He was wrapped by a wisp of Taoist light and disappeared on Azure Parasol Mountain. The crowd gasped, they were overwhelmed with shock. Sumeru in a mustard seed? Lin Sun's expression became a little strange. This was a type of unmatched divine ability that produced the power of space and time. Every single leaf and flower could support a world, causing everything to become different. When Lin Sun entered the Demon Saint's secret land in the Ultimate, he had seen such a magic on the mysterious Mountain of Heart. At that time, a lotus bloomed like a lantern and illuminated the world. Inside the lotus hid the real ancient relic, the Mountain of Heart. However, Lin Sun didn't expect that he would witness such a supreme magic again in front of Azure Parasol Mountain. It seems that there used to be a real powerful figure of the divine path on this mountain. Lin Sun sighed with emotion. Let's go. At this moment, the surroundings were in chaos. Numerous geniuses moved out and fought to be the first to enter Dark Parasol Mountain. Li Qinghuan of the Vast Sea Dao sect, Wu Duanya of the Profound Sun sect, Zhua Quanglan of the Ascension Sword sect, Lu Jioga, the fifth prince of the Fire Crow race. For a time, streaks of light shot violently through the heavens and the earth like rays of light, and they formed a dense expanse that was dazzling and resplendent. It caused wave after wave of exclamations of shock to resound in the surroundings. It wasn't long before peerless figures like Lei Qianjun of the Great Barbaric Thunder Clan and Qing Lian of the Azure Phoenix Clan soared into the sky one after another. As expected, this fellow also came. Lin Sun was stunned and caught a glimpse of a familiar figure. It was Fong Linhan, the successor of Baji Saber Nunnery. This fellow was still as arrogant and unruly as before. His long black hair fluttered in the wind, and he carried a broadsword on his back. His imposing manner was ostentatious and disdainful, as if he was the #1 expert in the world. But soon, Lin Sun's expression became a little uneasy, and he withdrew his gaze guiltily. Because right at this moment, the figure of the Profound Inquiry Sword School's holy maiden, Ji Xingyao, had appeared. She wore a plain-colored dress that accentuated her slender waist and graceful figure. Her temperament was as cold as snow, and her appearance was peerless like a fairy from the heavens. In an instant, the gazes of everyone present were drawn over. Many cultivators revealed fervent expressions, and there was no lack of yearning and adoration. Even though Ji Xingyao wasn't wearing a mask this time, Lin Sun still recognized with a single glance that this was the extremely arrogant young woman that he'd fought that day. I must not encounter her this time, Lin Sun muttered to himself. In next to no time, the surroundings were stirred, and a monstrous uproar resounded. Lin Sun was stunned. He raised his eyes and saw the figure of a young man had actually appeared by Ji Xingyao's side. This young man was too dazzling. He was handsome, unrestrained, and had slanted eyebrows and starry eyes. His figure was tall and outstanding, and he was like a blazing sun that shone brilliantly. This is Yu Lingkong from the southern profound world's pure land of longevity? He really is extraordinary. I heard that their Yu clan has a saint holding down the fort, and this Yu Lingkong is extremely unique. He's an innate genius that possesses extraordinary natural talent that reigns supreme in the world. Moreover, his status in the southern profound world is no different than Fairy Ji. Look, he and Fairy Ji are simply a match made in heaven. Perhaps only a peerless figure like Yu Lingkong is worthy of a holy maiden like Fairy Ji. The crowd exclaimed with admiration, and their voices carried envy and emotion. He's Yu Lingkong? Lin Sun's eyes narrowed. Even he had no choice but to admit that this man could be said to be perfect. His appearance, bearing, and bearing were all impeccable. Moreover, he possessed an extremely monstrous background and extraordinary status. Even his cultivation could be considered to be at the top amongst peerless figures. It was no wonder that such a dazzling figure would draw the attention of so many. However, the thing that truly aroused Lin Sun's attention was that Yu Lingkong possessed a true saint artifact, the Longevity Hall. If he encountered this person during the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, then he had to deal with him carefully. It was even to the extent that Lin Sun suspected that peerless geniuses like Ji Xingyao, Lei Qianjun, and Mu Jianting probably possessed numerous formidable trump cards and trump cards. Brother Lin, look. The disciples of Miluo Palace have appeared. You have to be vigilant against that young woman in a violet dress who's in the lead. According to the information my clan obtained, this young woman is extraordinarily formidable. Moreover, her origins are extremely mysterious. She seems to be related to the legendary Immortal Phoenix clan. Suddenly, Bai Fenglu reminded Lin Sun via voice transmission in a low voice. Lin Sun raised his head and saw a group of men and women soar through the sky. The men were handsome while the women were beautiful, and all of them were extremely extraordinary. Especially the young woman in a violet dress who was in the lead. Her appearance couldn't be said to be extremely breathtaking, yet she was extremely delicate. Her skin was pure white like jade and suffused with a crystalline sheen. Her entire body emanated a type of simple, elegant, and unique bearing. She was like a secluded orchid in an empty valley. Related to the Immortal Phoenix clan? Lin Sun was extremely shocked in his heart. The Immortal Phoenix clan was truly like a legendary clan. They could be said to be extremely renowned in the ancient times, and their resources and reserves were terrifying beyond imagination. She should be called Lorga, and all the disciples of Miluo Palace address her as Senior Sister Lorga. Looks like her status amongst the disciples of Miluo Palace is definitely extremely lofty. Miluo Palace is extremely mysterious, and they reside in the Earth Imperial Universe. They've practically been isolated from the world for the past 10,000 years, and there's very little news about them. However, their disciples have appeared at the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival this time. It can be predicted that they've come specifically for some great fortune. Bai Fenglu analyzed swiftly. Even though this old fool was a little shameless, he had to admit that he was absolutely peerless in the way of information, and Lin Sun had no choice but to be convinced. Lin Sun, it's time for us to make a move as well. Yu Jiaming was slightly unable to restrain himself. All right, let's go as well. Lin Sun nodded. Whoosh, whoosh. The two of them immediately soared into the sky and flashed towards the azure parasol mountain in the distance. Remember to bring me a share of the fortune if you manage to seize it. Bai Fenglu shouted at the top of his lungs, causing the nearby cultivators to secretly despise him. Demon God Lin has made a move as well. At the same time, Lin Sun's actions had attracted the attention of many cultivators present. It's widely rumored that he possesses a great fortune and a peerless sacred treasure. Entering the Azure Parasol Mountain this time will definitely draw countless covetous gazes, and it'll put him in a very bad situation. Heh, let's see how Demon God Lin will resolve this calamity. I even wonder if he has the chance to walk out of the Azure Parasol Mountain alive. In this way, it's very likely that Demon God Lin will suffer misfortune at the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival this time? Do you even have to ask? The discussions went on without end. Bai Fenglu's heart instantly sank. The storm that targeted Lin Sun was inevitable in the end. Buzz. When he approached the light screen that lay across the heavens and the earth, Lin Sun instantly felt his vision become blurry, and his body was enveloped by a layer of mysterious energy. In an instant, he felt as if he was shuttling through space and time. The stars moved, the heavens and the earth were in disorder, and everything became distorted. With a swoosh, his figure was teleported away and vanished. This was the supreme ability of putting a mountain in a mustard seed. Even though the Azure Parasol Mountain was right before his eyes, if he was unable to pass through the mysterious restriction light screen, then even a saint wouldn't be able to approach it. 10 minutes later, all the participating geniuses had vanished successively from the Azure Parasol Mountain, but the atmosphere didn't become cold because of this. On the contrary, numerous cultivators stood there and waited. They formed a dense mass, and it seemed extremely magnificent. Most of these cultivators had come to watch the show, and there were also some who were the seniors of those geniuses' sects or relatives and friends of their clans. For example, Granny Golden Crane, the clansman of the Zhongli clan, the clansman of the Sea Shark clan, the clansman of the Azure Phoenix clan, and numerous great figures of the ancient orthodoxies were waiting here. Since the ancient times until now, one must pass 5 tests in order to arrive before the ancient path Green Lantern Tree, and any genius that can't endure the tests would be teleported out. The first test is to enter the Grand 5-element reversal secret realm within the Azure Parasol Mountain. Only those that are able to persist for 10 days within it would have the qualifications to enter the next test. There are at least 10,000 geniuses that are participating in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival this time, and it's a gathering of geniuses and outstanding geniuses from all over the West Ocean region. It can be said to be a gathering of dazzling stars and experts. But how many of them are able to overcome the 5 tests and arrive before the ancient path Green Lantern Tree in the end? Those figures of the senior generation discussed and analyzed the situation. The experiences of the past aren't suitable for the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival this time. A grand era is about to arrive, and a shocking change has occurred in the Azure Parasol Mountain. Merely the amount of flower buds that have emerged from the ancient path Green Lantern Tree can be said to be unprecedented. Granny Golden Crane spoke abruptly. I can predict that so long as the geniuses that are participating in the Tao discussion aren't eliminated and arrive before the divine tree smoothly, then they'll more or less be able to obtain a fortune that belongs to them. In an instant, the eyes of those figures of the senior generation flickered, and they fell into deep contemplation. The Tao discussion has just begun, and it's utterly impossible for us to watch the tests that are occurring within the Azure Parasol Mountain from the outside world. Only when they overcome the 5 tests and arrive before the ancient path Green Lantern Tree will we be able to determine exactly how many people will be able to seize this unprecedented fortune. Chapter 873. Howl. As soon as Lin Sun came back to his senses, a thunderous roar rang in his ears before he could see the scene in front of him clearly. At the same time, Lin Sun's nose was assaulted by a horrible and piercing chill, which made Lin Sun stiff all over. With a swish, Lin Sun's figure disappeared. Rocks burst into pieces, ice chips flew everywhere, and a huge pit with a range of 300 meters appeared on the ground, which was shocking to see. Lin Sun was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. What a strong destructive power! It was an enormous ice condor with wings that were over 30 meters long when spread out. Its claws were like blades, and its entire body was covered in a glazed sheen of ice and snow. Its eyes seemed as if they were carved from ice and snow, and they emitted a piercing cold light. Whoosh! The ice eagle flew across the sky with its wings as sharp as knives, cutting the void. With a gentle stroke of its claws, an ice and snow sword light broke through the air, dazzling and emitting a fierce breath. Lin Sun ran the ice drake steps and dodged it again. A straight crack of thousands of meters was torn on the ground, as if it was cutting tofu. The sharp breath was too terrible. Lin Sun became more and more astonished. This huge ice sculpture was just like a grandmaster of swordsmanship. The sword intent it released was condensed, sharp, and swift, with a sense of ease and unconstrained. Moreover, he noticed that this strange bird seemed to have no mood swings, nor a trace of vitality, like a puppet. However, it just so happened that its combat instincts were extremely sharp and terrifying. In just 2 strikes, it had displayed a terrifying combat ability that only those who had experienced hundreds of battles could possess. Whoosh! 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 The ice eagle attacked again. Its wings danced and flapped wildly, bursting out thousands of ice and snow sword intent, which covered the sky and the earth and fell from the sky. The scene was so terrible that Lin Sun had the illusion of facing a half-step king. Boom! He ran his cultivation and punched out like lightning, deducing the 9 strikes of shaking heaven. The vast fist force was unparalleled, shaking the world. There was a deafening collision here. The ground was broken ice chips flew everywhere, and the sky was full of white piercing cold air, sword intent and fist force. How is this a ferocious bird? It's obviously a top-notch expert that has mastered a secret technique of the sword Tao. Lin Sun's pupils shrank. Not daring to neglect, he let out a long roar and rose into the air. Using ice dragon steps, he attacked with all his strength. Die! After a while, Lin Sun's fist was bright and burst out a terrible light. In an instant it broke through the void and smashed on the ice sculpture. Crack! An astonishing scene appeared. The ice sculpture was like a block of ice. It shattered into countless ice shards and rained down from the sky. It's actually formed from ice and snow? Lin Sun gasped and rushed forward. He picked up some ice chips and examined them carefully. In the end, he could conclude that this was just the most ordinary ice and snow. However, just now, it had transformed into a gigantic ice sculpture, and it had even grasped a peerless sword intent. This was shocking. The Azure Parasol Mountain really is extraordinary. Even a top figure at the reincarnation development stage like Cell would probably not be a match for this flying beast. Lin Sun looked a little dignified. He looked around and saw thousands of miles of ice and snow. Even the earth was cast by a thick layer of ice, crystal and clear. The world was shrouded in a biting chill. It was a vast expanse of whiteness, like a world of ice and snow. At first glance, there was no end to it. Clang! Lin Sun released the broken sword. With a slight flash, he broke the ice on the ground and drilled into the ground. 30 meters. 300 meters. 3,000 meters. Up to the depth of 80,000 meters, there was still a thick layer of ice as if there was no bottom. This distance made Lin Sun feel a little tired. Finally, he had to give up the idea of exploring. The first test of the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival is the secret realm of 5 elements reversal. In this way, this place should be a secret realm. I don't know how many talents who participated in this Tao Discussion Lantern Festival have entered this secret realm like me. Lin Sun stopped and pondered. He'd found out from Bai Feng Lu before he came here that the Tao Lantern Discussion had a total of 5 tests. Every single test could be said to be unfathomable, and they weren't just difficult and dangerous, they were filled with terrifying dangers. The slightest mistake might cause one to be eliminated. According to Bai Fenglu, in the past Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, more than 90% of the talents who participated in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival were eliminated in these 5 tests. In other words, only a small group of elites would be able to reach the ancient path's green lamp tree. It could be imagined that even if they participated, if they couldn't pass the 5 tests, they would not be able to seize the good fortune on the ancient green light tree. Boom! The nearby ice and snow ground suddenly burst, causing a roar and splashing ice and snow. Fish condensed from ice and snow rose into the air. Different from the outside world, these fish were more than 10 meters long and had ice and snow wings. They could fly in the air, which was very magical. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes. Just now, his spiritual strength covered the surrounding area of 3,000 meters, but he didn't notice any signs. But now the earth burst, and a group of ice and snow-winged fish rushed out. Whoosh! Whoosh! They wandered in the void as freely and flexibly as if they were swimming in the sea. As soon as they opened their mouths, dazzling white thunderbolts burst out and enveloped Lin Sun. Crack! The snow-white thunderbolts were dazzling and could easily tear the void. They were so powerful that they were comparable to the full blow of a top practitioner in the reincarnation developing realm. But now, countless ice and snow-winged fish soared into the sky and danced like a tide. The snow-white thunderbolts they ejected were also dense, shaking the world and making people's scalp numb. Oh no! Lin Sun's face changed slightly. Without any hesitation, he turned around and fled at an extremely fast speed. Although he was not afraid of these strange fish, he felt a headache and trouble. There were too many of them. Even if he killed them, it would take too much effort. Before he figured out the secret realm of 5 elements reversal, Lin Sun didn't want to waste any strength. However, as soon as he got rid of the attacks of these strange fish, another change happened before he moved forward for a long time. In the sky, the wind was howling and the ice and snow were dancing wildly. The ice and snow turned into beautiful women wearing ice and snow feather clothes and waving long sleeves. They danced between heaven and earth, and a wisp of sad and sorrowful music rang out with a shocking sense of sorrow. Looking from a distance, the ice and snow women danced between heaven and earth. Their clear shadows fluttered and their sad voices sang, which was so weird and creepy. This was a group of ice and snow women. Lin Sun gasped. At the first time he heard the sad and sorrowful song, his soul was shocked by endless sadness, desolation, and despair, which seemed to drag him into the endless abyss and make him sink. Undoubtedly, this was an extremely terrible sound wave attack aimed at the soul of practitioners. If Lin Sun hadn't cultivated the spirit of the spirit, he would have been affected. Howl! Lin Sun uttered an obscure sound. A paleo-divine beast appeared and roared to the sky, shaking the 9 heavens and 10 earth. The roar, which seemed to have substance, turned into golden ripples that swept across heaven and earth. Bang, bang, bang! In an instant, some ice and snow women were caught off guard. Their bodies suddenly exploded and were crushed by the terrible power of the paleo roar. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Sun ran the ice dragon steps and disappeared in an instant. After 30 minutes, Lin Sun's face became more and more serious. Along the way, he saw ice and snow eagles, ice and snow-winged fish, ice and snow demons, and ice and snow trees. Each of them was like the top of the reincarnation development realm, and they mastered different kinds of Tao, such as Sword Tao, Thunder Tao, Sound Tao, and so on. All of them were extremely powerful and terrifying. The most important thing was that there were too many of them. After killing one group, another group appeared. It seemed that they would never be finished. It's really troublesome, Lin Sun frowned. According to the rules of the test, as long as one could hold on in the secret realm of 5 elements reversal for 7 days without being defeated, he could successfully pass the first test. But Lin soon doubted that the first test alone might make many talents stop and be eliminated. Chapter 874. Gu Liang thought for a while and shook his head with a wry smile. I've just arrived in Mist City for less than 7 days, so I know nothing about the situation here. It's hard for me to figure out who is playing tricks in the dark. It turned out that Gu Liang came to Mist City this time at the request of his father, Gu Yanping, to open a golden hall in Mist City as a stronghold. After accumulating enough strength and materials, Golden Hall could be expanded to the whole Southwest Province. According to Gu Yanping's plan, as the capital of Southwest Province, if he could open up a business here, he would be able to attract many business talents and further expand the strength of Golden Hall. But even Gu Liang didn't expect that trouble would come to him as soon as he settled down in Mist City, which really made him distressed. Lin Sun couldn't help but secretly sigh when he learned all this. Gu Yanping and his son were definitely unwilling to be mediocre. In just over a year, they had already set their sights on the whole Southwest Province. But on second thought, according to the business means shown by Gu Yanping in the past, he was indeed a rare and powerful figure. Seeming to feel that the topic was a little boring, Gu Liang smiled and said, "By the way, I've heard a lot about you when I came to Mist City this time. You're so famous that I almost doubted whether it was you or not." There was a touch of heartfelt amazement in his voice. It had only been more than a year since Gu Liang last saw Lin Sun, but Lin Sun had already made such remarkable achievements. Compared to Gu Liang had been troubled by a group of local ruffians even when he had just settled down in Mist City. All this made Gu Liang sigh. What had happened to Lin Sun in the past year? What had made him achieve what he had today? It's just a false reputation. Lin Sun shrugged and said, "Men are afraid of fame just as pigs are of fattening. The bigger the reputation, the more trouble there will be." Gu Liang laughed. "The reputation that others can't wait to become trouble for you. You're really different from others." Lin Sun smiled and said, "Let's not talk about this. Are you going to stay in Mist City in the future?" Gu Liang nodded and said, "If we can overcome the current difficulties and establish Golden Hall in Mist City, I will definitely not leave in a short time." Speaking of this, he suddenly smiled mysteriously and said, "Lin Sun, although you have made more progress than me in the past year, when the power of Golden Hall develops in the future, I won't be much inferior to you." Before Lin Sun could speak, he continued, "According to my father's plan, if we want to develop Golden Hall into a well-known first-class business in the Empire, we can't take the usual road. But now, my father has found this road." Lin Sun couldn't help but ask, "What path?" Gu Liang smiled slightly. "You will know in the future. If this path can be taken, I will definitely not be left behind by you in the future." Lin Sun laughed and scolded, "Isn't it the same as not saying anything?" Gu Liang grinned and said, "In short, I can guarantee that if everything goes well, the power of Golden Hall is destined to blossom everywhere in the Empire in the future, and even expand to farther places in the Empire." When he spoke up to hear, his eyes were already filled with bright longing. Lin Sun was shocked. Expand beyond the Empire? Gu Yanping was really bold. If so, wouldn't Golden Hall become a huge force like Keystone Business in the future? Suddenly, a burst of noise came from outside, interrupting this reunion of old friends. "Where's the shop owner? Get out of here! And the guy who hurt people just now, come out quickly!" Obviously, that group of ruffians came back aggressively and seemed to be full of confidence. Obviously, they had found helpers. Lin Sun got up and said, "Let's go out and have a look." Gu Liang reminded him with a worried face, "Lin Sun, I know you are very famous now, but there are all kinds of forces in Mist City. Don't be impulsive. Even if the shop is smashed this time, as long as you are alive, you will have a chance to come back." Before he could finish, Lin Sun interrupted him helplessly, "Well, let's go." Gu Liang wanted to say something more, but he was dragged out of the quiet room by Lin Sun. In front of the shop, a group of ruffians surrounded it, all looking fierce. The leading man in black was also there, but his cheeks were red and swollen like a pig's head, which looked very funny. But at this time, they were not the main characters. The main character was an old man with a goatee. At this moment, he was sitting leisurely in a chair in the shop, looking arrogant and resting with his eyes closed. When Lin Sun and Gu Liang came out, the big man in black suddenly showed resentment in his eyes. He pointed to Lin Sun and shouted, "Senior Qian, it's that guy who intervened in this matter. If it weren't for him, we would have already succeeded." The ruffians also shouted, "Yes, it's that bastard. He is so hateful that he doesn't take our Azure Light Pavilion seriously at all." Azure Light Pavilion. Gu Liang's face suddenly changed. Even if he didn't know much about Mist City, he knew that Azure Light Pavilion was a first-class force in the city. But he never expected that it was Azure Light Pavilion who was against him this time. This was too unexpected. How could Golden Hall offend Azure Light Pavilion before it took root in Mist City? Hearing the 3 words, Azure Light Pavilion, Lin Sun's eyes suddenly flashed with a strange color, and the corners of his mouth raised a faint arc. He said with a smile, "I didn't expect you to have such a backbone. You dare to bring people back to kill me. You are courting death. How dare you be presumptuous in front of Senior Qian? You are dead. Boy, don't blame us for not telling you. Senior Qian is a senior in Azure Light Pavilion. If you don't want to die, kneel down and apologize quickly." The ruffians scolded harshly. "Lin Sun, don't be impulsive. We can't afford to offend Azure Light Pavilion. Let me deal with this matter." Gu Liang was worried about Lin Sun's impulsiveness, so he quickly reminded Lin Sun in a low voice. Seeing this, the ruffians all burst into laughter, looking complacent and resentful. If they had known this earlier, why did they do it? However, Lin Sun smiled more and more brilliantly and said, "You have found the right person to threaten me with Azure Light Pavilion. Let's cut to the chase. Who is Senior Qian? Stand out and let me know who you are." The old man with a goatee was sitting there, but Lin Sun ignored him. This arrogant look made all the ruffians furious, and they couldn't wait to kill the boy in front of them with a knife. Gu Liang was helpless, knowing that he couldn't persuade Lin Sun at all. But at this moment, he also threw caution to the wind. At worst, he would make a good scene with Lin Sun, and then choose another opportunity to return to Mist City. At this time, the old man with a goatee, who was called Senior Qian by the ruffians, who had been closing his eyes and looking arrogant, suddenly snorted coldly. "Young man, it's not good to be too angry. The opportunity has been given to you, but you don't grasp it well. Then don't blame me." Elder Qian's voice was low and deep, revealing a trace of undisguised coldness. As he spoke, he also opened his closed eyes. But, when he saw Lin Sun, his eyes suddenly bulged, and his voice stopped abruptly as if he had seen a ghost. When the ruffians saw Senior Qian's indescribable majesty in his speech and behavior, they couldn't help but feel refreshed. Senior Qian deserved to be called Senior Qian. There was no dirty word in his words, but there was an invisible oppressive force. Senior, really senior. They didn't notice that Senior Qian, who could only be described as a high mountain in their hearts, was surging like stormy waves in his heart at this moment. His mind seemed to be struck by lightning, and he felt dizzy for a while. How could it be this guy? Senior Qian looked sluggish, and his mind naturally remembered the killing on the rainy night a few days ago, and the peak duel in the arena. Why? Why could he meet this devil here? Senior Qian's mouth couldn't help twitching. If the big shots in Azure Light Pavilion knew that he had provoked this devil, the consequences would be unimaginable. "Why don't you speak?" Lin Sun looked at Senior Qian with a smile. At a glance, he could see that this old guy had completely lost his temper. Senior Qian's mouth trembled, and when he was about to speak, the black-robed man took the initiative to scold him. "You are so reckless. How dare you be disrespectful to Senior Qian at this time? You are just like an old man drinking arsenic. You don't want to live." Slap. Senior Qian couldn't help but stand up and slap the black-robed man's face fiercely. The sound was crisp and loud. The black-robed man covered his cheek and screamed, looking at Senior Qian in disbelief. His companions were also stunned by this sudden scene. Senior Qian, did you hit the wrong person? The black-robed man asked innocently. That's exactly what I want to beat up, you blind thing. Senior Qian was so angry that he trembled all over. He raised his hand and slapped the black-robed man again and again, venting his anger on the black-robed man's head. The black-robed man wailed and knelt down to beg for mercy. The ruffians next to him were shocked and aghast. Looking at the crazy Senior Qian, they finally realized that they seemed to have provoked the wrong person this time. Gu Liang had made a decision to make a big scene with Lin Sun. Who would have thought that he would see such a dog-eat-dog show? He couldn't help but be stunned. What was going on? He couldn't help but look at Lin Sun, only to see that Lin Sun was watching all this with a smile. He suddenly vaguely understood something and was shocked. He didn't expect that Lin Sun had such power now. And you, kneel down and apologize to Child Lin Sun quickly. After a long time, Senior Qian was tired. If he continued to beat them, they would die. So, Senior Qian stared at them directly and shouted at them to apologize to Lin Sun. What a joke! If he couldn't ask for the forgiveness of this evil man today, the consequences would be too serious, and even he couldn't afford it. With a series of thumps, those ruffians knelt down immediately. They had been shocked and scared. How dare they hesitate at this moment? Didn't they see that Senior Qian was so scared that his old face turned pale? Chapter 875. It was a vast expanse of whiteness with snow and ice dancing in the air. The wind was howling and the cold was biting. Along the way, Lin Sun encountered dangers again and again, but he avoided them in time and left quickly. It was too lonely. There was nothing else in this secret realm except for ice and snow. Suddenly, there was a whistling sound in the wind and snow, and a gust of wind swept over Lin Sun's head. It was a group of young men and women riding brilliant escape lights, which was very eye-catching in the white world of ice and snow, which surprised Lin Sun a little bit. After such a long journey, this was the first group of talents he had seen. When those men and women saw Lin Sun walking alone in the wind and snow, they were also a little surprised. This guy is really bold. He dares to cross the ice and snow wilderness alone without hiding or covering up. Is he a peerless figure? But why haven't I remembered such a person before? What peerless figure? He's clearly a pitiful fellow with a single glance that doesn't possess sufficient resources and reserves and doesn't have many friends. Don't forget that even peerless figures have to travel together and be careful in this grand five-element reversal secret realm. How could anyone be so reckless and bold like him? He's obviously courting death. Those men and women whispered to each other. There's no need to speculate. This is an idiot with no roots and few friends. He can only act alone and obviously doesn't know the horror of this secret realm. He will die sooner or later. We're approaching the fiery lotus iceberg soon. The road will be more dangerous and terrible. Let's follow this person and let him explore the way for us. Once there is any danger, we can avoid it in time. Someone suggested in a low voice. Lin Sun raised his eyes slightly and glanced at those young men and women calmly. He didn't say anything and just kept moving forward. Before entering this ice and snow secret realm, Lin Sun had exerted the formless skill to change his appearance and temperament. At this time, even if Yu Jianming came, he might not be able to recognize his identity. Lin Sun was very clear that yesterday, someone secretly added fuel to the fire and released the news about him, which made him the target of public criticism. He was in the eye of the storm and was targeted by many talent. There might be some hotheads who would attack him in order to seize the so-called fortune and holy treasures. Lin Sun wasn't afraid of trouble, but he wasn't stupid enough to take precautions. The reason he disguised himself was because he intended to see exactly how many people wanted to deal with him during the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, and who was the main culprit that was adding fuel to the fire from the shadows. Roar. A ruthless and ear-piercing roar sounded out from afar as a completely snow-white enormous ape leaped out from thin air. Its fur was crystalline and translucent, and it emitted a ferocious and baleful aura. Its body was over 100 m tall like a mountain, ferocious and savage. Its body was agile, its fangs were like sharp blades, and its eyes were scarlet like blood, shooting out terrifying blood-colored beams of light. Undoubtedly, this was an extremely ferocious and terrible beast, stronger than the ice beasts Lin Sun had seen along the way. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes slightly and realized that the real danger began to appear gradually. Whoosh! His figure flashed and he dodged far away, circling around the other side. Oh, I didn't expect this idiot to be so alert. He knows how to seek fortune and avoid calamity. That's normal. This kind of guy is more afraid of death. After all, it's not easy for him to participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival. The men and women who followed Lin Sun all the way laughed, and their words were frivolous. After another dozens of miles, a trace of surprise flashed across Lin Sun's face. In the biting cold wind there was a pungent smell of blood. It didn't take long for Lin Sun to notice that on the ice layer far away, there was smoke and dust, broken feathers, broken bones and scales scattered, and there were many bloodstains on the ground. Not long ago, there had been a fierce fight here. Lin Sun was shocked. A lava lake, bright red and translucent, appeared on the snow-white ice layer, covering an area of about 100 m. White mist rose from the lake, full of pungent smell of sulfur. There was a lava lake in the world of ice and snow, but the nearby ice layer had not been melted. Instead, it was like the fusion of ice and fire, forming an incredible scene. Secret Realm of 5 Elements Reversal. Reversal. Is the so-called reversal the scene in front of me? Lin Sun was lost in thought. He didn't immediately approach to investigate. There had been a fierce battle near the lava lake not long ago, which made him smell a trace of danger. Hey, you, go and find out the details of the lake. The men and women who followed behind also followed up and shouted, asking Lin Sun to take the risk. Lin Sun frowned, glanced at them, and said, "If you want to go, go by yourself. Don't shout here." He was speculating about the scene in front of him, suspecting that there was a big mystery hidden in the so-called secret realm of 5 elements reversal. Just like the scene in front of him, ice and lava coexisted without conflict, which was undoubtedly too abnormal. The so-called incompatible of water and fire was the rule of heaven and earth. But now there was such a delicate balance. The so-called reversal might be a manifestation of, when things reach an extreme, they will go in the opposite direction. Because he was thinking about these mysteries, he directly ignored the scolding of the group of men and women. "Did you hear that? I'm talking to you." The faces of those men and women darkened, and they were a little displeased. In their opinion, this young man was alone, weak, and unfamiliar, and didn't seem like any peerless figure who participated in this Tao Discussion Lantern Festival at all. So they didn't bother to be polite and regarded Lin Sun as a person who could be bullied. If this secret realm is regarded as a spiritual formation, the so-called Grand 5 Elements reversal may be a kind of anti-5 Elements layout. Lin Sun was lost in thought. "You're courting death." Seeing that Lin Sun was indifferent, a young man suddenly sneered and raised his hand to slap. "It's useless to pretend to be deaf and mute. You have to go even if you don't want to." Boom! A dazzling palm wind emerged, destroying the void, whistling like a dragon out of the abyss, and was going to force Lin Sun to go forward and explore. "You're courting death." A cold light flashed in Lin Sun's black eyes. In just a moment, those men and women trembled in their hearts. Bang! Lin Sun turned around and took a light step forward. A snow-white ice dragon appeared in the air, and it instantly crushed the palm wind. After that, its momentum didn't diminish. The ice dragon waved its tail, and with a bang, its huge figure emitted a terrifying cold light that enveloped those men and women. Since these young people could participate in the Tao Discussion Lantern Festival, they were naturally the proud figures of the younger generation, and they were extremely extraordinary and powerful. Unfortunately, they encountered Lin Sun, and they were no match for him at all. Even peerless figures like Sha Luchan and Qing Lianer were defeated by Lin Sun in a domineering manner, let alone them. You're demon god Lin? They didn't know until they made a move, but as soon as they did, these young men and women's eyes almost fell out, and they lost their voices in shock. With just a glance, they recognized that this was the demon god Lin who had just displayed his might in front of the pavilion of spring and autumn a few days ago. However, they couldn't call out at all. The snow-white ice dragon waved its tail in the air with unparalleled power and terror. In the blink of an eye, they were suppressed and fell to the ground, and they screamed repeatedly. Demon Lin, no, child Lin, we didn't know it was you. We have eyes but failed to see. Please calm down and forgive us. These men and women's teeth chattered, and they trembled. The arrogance and disdain they had just now were gone. On the contrary, when they thought of all the legends about Lin Sun, they couldn't control the fear and terror in their hearts. This was a peerless and ruthless man. These geniuses might have extraordinary backgrounds, and they could be regarded as influential figures in the younger generation. But in front of a figure like Demon God Lin, they were really nothing. You've offended me several times in a row, and you want me to forgive you just because you have eyes but failed to see? Lin Sun's expression was cold. He wasn't a cruel person, but he wasn't a person who would be bullied by others either. Along the way, he had been too lazy to pay attention to these people who were like flies, but they just had to take an inch, and now they even wanted to force him to submit. This was what Lin Sun couldn't tolerate. Bang! Lin Sun kicked out, and a young man was kicked into the air, letting out a scream. However, when Lin Sun was about to hit him, he saw a fluctuation in the void, and the young man was directly teleported away, disappearing into thin air. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. Sure enough, in the 5 tests of Azure Parasol Mountain, once one's life was threatened, he would be teleported away. The most serious outcome was to be eliminated, and he wouldn't have the chance to obtain the opportunity, but he wouldn't really die. Lin Sun had learned about this before, and he also knew that when he really passed through the 5 tests and reached the ancient path green lamp tree, there would be no protection. In other words, only at that time, in order to seize the great fortune, would he really die. No. I beg you, please don't. Those men and women completely panicked, and their faces changed dramatically. They didn't want to be eliminated. They had just come in and hadn't obtained the fortune. How could they be willing to leave? Bang! Bang! Lin Sun was unmoved. He kicked them away one by one, and they were teleported out of the secret ice realm. Soon, there was only a young man in black left in the field. This young man in black was the first guy who attacked Lin Sun just now. Lin Sun looked down at him. Aren't you curious about what's hidden in the lava lake? I'll satisfy your curiosity now, and let you see it for yourself. No. The young man in black was so shocked that his soul almost flew out of his body. However, when he was about to beg for mercy, he was kicked out by Lin Sun, and he fell into the lava lake in the distance. Bang! However, before the young man in black fell, there was a sudden roar in the lake, and a monstrous wave of lava was set off. It was dazzling, and it burned the sky. Whoosh! At the same time, a long snake that looked like a fiery lightning swept out. It flashed in the void, and then it rushed toward the young man in black. Lin Sun, who was in the distance, gasped. He recognized at a glance that it was an ancient demonic beast, Fire Dragon.